tonight with a public hearing. This is a public hearing to consider two separate ordinances. The first is an ordinance to revise the monthly sewer rates. Should we address these one at a time?
Yes, I think that would be appropriate.
All right. Do we have anything to read into the record?
Yes, I have just a couple of exhibits to read in. Exhibit BC1 is proof of publication in the Daily Local News on December 1st, 2021 of this hearing. BC2 is an email dated November 19th, 2021 from Jill Kirk to the Chester County Law Library and the Daily Local News providing proposed ordinances for public inspection. Those are the only board exhibits for this particular hearing.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions by Councilor or the Mayor on the first ordinance up for consideration this evening? Any comments or questions by anyone else in attendance regarding the first ordinance? Alrighty. Seeing none, now would be a good time for a motion. All right, we have a motion to adopt the ordinance as presented and a second by Mr. Braceland. Sean, you running this meeting?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Ms. Dorsey?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn? Yes. Mr. Stefano?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Scott is present. Mr. Braceland?
Yes.
President Gailey?
Yes. Motion passes 6-0. The next item on the agenda is another ordinance to adopt the real estate tax rate effective on the new year. You tell us if we have any exhibits for that one.
Just two. BC1 is proof of publication in the Daily Local News on December 1st, 2021. BC2 is an email dated November 19th, 2021 from Jill Kirk to the Chester County Law Library and the Daily News providing the proposed ordinances for public inspection.
Thank you. Any comments or questions by council on the second ordinance up for adoption this evening? Any comments or questions by anyone else in attendance regarding the second ordinance up for adoption this evening? Alrighty. Anybody care to make a motion that we adopt the second ordinance as presented?
I move we adopt the second ordinance as presented.
Brilliantly stated, Don. Thank you.
Second.
Thanks, Bernie. Sean?
Ms. Dorsey?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn? Mr. Stefano?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Scott is absent. Mr. Braceland?
Yes.
President Gailey?
Yes, the motion passes 6-0. Thank you. And that concludes our public hearing. Now we move on to the the December 14th, 2021 Borough Council work session. We will start the work session with the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Braceland. Thank you, Don. Figured it was your last chance tonight or tomorrow. The next item on the agenda is comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any such comments? Seeing none, the moment we've all been waiting for, the next item on the agenda is to conduct interviews to fill numerous vacancies on boroughs, boards, and commissions. I'm just going to go through the list as it is on the agenda. Excuse me, the first person on the agenda is Tommy Miles, who has applied for the Railroad Restoration Committee. Tommy, come on up, please. Come on down.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming this evening. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in joining the Railroad Restoration Committee and why you think you're well suited for that.
Okay, so I've been in the railroading, business for approximately the last 25 years. I've owned a railroad. I've worked for Class 1 railroads. I've done a number of public-private partnerships, RTAP money, RFAP money. I worked very well with PennDOT, got a lot done in Harrisburg when I owned the Wellsboro and Corning Railroad, which ran from Wellsboro, PA up to Corning, New York. Sold that off in 2012, I believe, bought the Farmers and Mechanics building. So completely restored the F&M building, all new mechanicals, all new interiors. It's been leased up 100% since, say, June of 14. So the building's going great. Obviously, I have an affinity for the borough. I went to the old Shanahan up on the hill. And just the railroad is something I know a lot about. And I have a wealth of knowledge that I just like to share and help and see if we can't get the track going back in from Westchester down to Wawa.
Cool. So you said you owned a railroad.
Yes, I owned a short line railroad. It was 38 miles that went from Wellsboro, PA up to Corning, New York, tied in with the Norfolk Southern and Canadian Pacific. That's how we got out to the National Rail Network.
Interesting. That's cool.
It was a lot of fun.
Does anybody have any questions for Tommy?
Thank you very much. I
The,
don't know.
the opportunity to write grants and to find grants for our railroad going from Westchester to Franklintown. Do you know where we can find those opportunities?
Well, for the most part, what we utilized were two programs. They were matching grants. So RFAP, which is the Rail Freight Assistance Program, did deal with freight. It didn't have really much to do with the public transportation. It was administered by PennDOT, and it was a 70-30 grant, 70% provided by the state, 30% provided by the local purveyor, which would borough, because technically they're trying to put the track back in service. So, I mean, we could go through that. The RTAP is a 50-50 match. A little bit different, but I mean, I've secured back well over $5 million from my railroad out of
Right.
probably built 20 new miles of railroad. Everybody was ripping their railroad up. We were putting railroad down. It was a very successful railroad that we sold to a national company in 2012. So we've been through it. Still probably have a number of contacts at SEPTA, number of contacts in Harrisburg that work through it. I don't know if you guys have you guys put in for any RTAP money? Okay. Yeah, and that's the best way to do it. As long as you get your state rep and senator involved on it. It's the best. That's the way we always did it. But good. Any other questions?
Don?
Mr. Miles,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lisa.
Mr. Miles, clearly your railroad experience would be a great asset to the Railroad
Thank you.
Committee. Other than your experience, or in addition to your experience, what asset do you think you bring, which would add the greatest value in addition to your experience?
Well, the real value that I would bring is I have a decidedly different way of looking at things. And I ran my railroad on a very thin budget because it's real easy for things to get out of hand especially when it comes to public projects like this. So looking at things that maybe we don't necessarily need to gold plate the whole railroad, but save a little money here to spend a little money there. It's just a different way of looking at things. Again, coming from the business and the industry, I know how studies and surveys and things can tend to get a little pricey and out of hand where we might not need, a 200-page dialogue on why we need to put the railroad back in. So fiscally speaking, I'm very responsible from that regard.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
We'll need that.
Oh, guaranteed. It's one of those things that just tends to get away from you before you even know it. But like I said, I turned my little 38-mile railroad from, I guess when I took over, we were doing 300 carloads. By the time I sold in 2012, which was only 4 years later, we were doing about 12,000. So we really exploded exponentially. But the good part about it was we were able to keep up with that because the railroad wasn't built for 12,000 carloads. It was built for 300. So we luckily had a lot of help in Harrisburg, had a lot of good construction guys working for us, a lot of good surveyors and things of that nature that allowed us to move in a very efficient manner.
Do you have a question, Don?
Not so much a question. I had met Tommy before, and we went into because we went into the railroad quite a bit, and like he knows how to lay track. So I figured, okay.
We may need some volunteers to do that.
I got guys for that. I'm too old for that anymore. I got guys for that though. But again, like I said, we probably built, in addition to the 38 that we had on my railroad, over the course of those 4 years, we probably installed another 20 miles, which is unheard of, especially for short line railroad. They're just not laying more track. They're like I said, tearing it up.
Yeah, are you familiar with the rail trail that goes up Pine Creek?
Yep. Yeah, we were right on the other side of the street on 287.
Cool.
So that line used to connect to my line, and then it would ran down to Jersey Shore.
Yeah, my wife grew up in Jersey Shore, and her house is on the rail trail.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Used to be on the railroad.
Right. Well, yeah, they tore that up in '86. I didn't get the Wellsboro Railroad until end of 2007.
Cool.
So
Any other questions for Tommy? You certainly seem well qualified. I think there are
Thank
two
you.
openings and 2 candidates. So I like your chances. What we usually do is go through all the interviews, then we make a decision, and we'll let everyone know at the end of that. But really appreciate your time tonight.
great, excellent. Like I said, I found a spot where I could be of use, and obviously I love the borough, or I wouldn't have invested my money in the downtown area. It's a great product you guys are putting on, and for my money, I don't want to be anywhere else. So,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Tommy. The next person on the agenda is Jordan Burley? Jordan, let's hear why you would like to be on the Railroad Restoration Committee.
Sure. I mean, back in 2014, first thing becoming president of council, created the Railroad Restoration Committee along with all of council. Extremely interested in it for a long time, been extremely active in it for a long time, and plan to continue to do so until we have full passenger service back to Westchester.
Thanks, Jordan. Any questions for Jordan?
Know how to lay track?
No, I'm a quick learner.
Well, Tommy's going to teach you. Well, Jordan, we have 2 openings and 2 candidates. So, like I said, I like your chances,
We'll
but
see.
you'll find out when we vote on it.
Thank you.
While we're talking to Jordan, and I'm going to do this with anyone else who's on the agenda more than once, we're just going to skip to Jordan again, who's also up for the Community Campus Committee. Jordan, why would you like to be on the Campus Committee?
Again, the Community Campus Committee was my initiative this year to have a permanent committee of council in order to work collaboratively with the university to reduce any of the quality of life nuisance crimes and work together on any opportunities to better improve the borough of Westchester, particularly in the areas affected mostly by the university. I'm seeing, some of the benefits already of collaborating with the university. There was no relationship where I started as mayor this year, and we've turned around this year, rebooted relationships with President Fiorentino. He's since called over to West Goshen and got them to remove student home as a use in areas that would have been greatly affected in the southeast of our neighborhood based on that relationship. We were also able to pass the University Overlay District for the university, provide some certainty as to zoning and future planning for both the borough and university. So it's extremely important to work with our neighbors, particular somebody like the university that whether we like it or not, sometimes we're married. We'll always be married, and some of the parts is always bigger than the individual pieces. So like to continue to work towards mission set forth by the Community Campus Committee. That being said, I will say that I have bought a house in the first ward, closed January 12th. So I'd like to be appointed not as a resident of the fourth, because then I would next month around this time, but instead as an at-large.
All right, well, congratulations. And we'll let you know. Thanks, Jordan. I'm going to jump back up to the list. The next committee is the Recreation Commission, and the first applicant for that is Rick Bellotta. Mr. Bellotta, tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're interested in the Recreation Commission, and what you think you can bring to the role.
Sure. I actually grew up in the borough when I was younger and had pretty fond memories of Everhard Park. Active with cycling, hiking, big believer in the importance of both active and passive outdoor recreation. My wife and I relocated just recently to North Church about 3 years ago. Prior to that, I lived in East Pikeland, and 5 years I was on the East Pikeland Parks and Rec, involved in everything from community event planning, park upkeep, park planning. We went out for grants and built a 2.5-mile trail called the French Creek Trail. I've been involved also in trail building in a lot of the local parks, working with state park folks, actually the national park folks as well, training them on trail building techniques. Yeah, so those are the types of things I've been involved in. I think we have a unique opportunity here to both build on the parks that we have in place, maybe reach out to the community a bit more, get more community engagement, what they're looking for out of the Parks and Rec system. I also think it's increasingly important, and something I did when I was in East Pikeland, coordinating with both the county, regional, and other municipalities around, so we use our kind of collective resources as effectively as we can.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Bellotta? Lisa.
Mr. Gailey, Mr. Bellotta, I'll ask you the same question I asked Mr. Miles. You know, in addition to your recreational experience, what other asset do you bring to the committee that would add value?
Time is one thing, and I think that's important. I'm semi-retired now, so I can commit a lot of effort to this. I do think I have a lot of technical skills with GIS systems, with just online media. I think, for example, I think we have an opportunity to communicate better about what some of our recreational opportunities and events are with the community. Notice we're a little bit out of date there. I'm a good team builder, can work with both other municipalities, people within the community to get things done.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. We will make a decision and we'll let everyone know. But
Sounds
really
great.
appreciate your willingness to volunteer.
My pleasure.
Thank you. The next candidate for the Recreation Commission is Mr. Reese, Michael Reese. Hello, thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're interested in the Recreation Commission, and what you think you can bring to the role.
Sure. So a little bit about myself. I'm a 15-year resident of the borough. I live here. I work here. I work for the bank. Lived at Price Street, as my wife would actually put it, in the under 21 section of Price Street. Till about 3 years ago, we moved to South Walnut Street. So a little bit of out of the frying pan into the fire kind of situation, but we love it down there. As far as just kind of my thoughts around the Recreation Commission, obviously a frequent user of the parks, heavy user of the parks. Children and I have been to every park in the borough multiple times over the years. It's funny, we kind of refer to what my wife referred to as park hopping, which basically just keep her sanity and get the kid in the house for a while. But needless to say, during that time, I have observed that there's a little bit of a disparity in times between the general upkeep, the condition of some of our parks. And I think a lot of that disparity has to do with just the community involvement and the engagement of those residents very close to those parks. You know, when you think about some of the parks that have the Friends of associations and the great work that they've been able to do for those parks and the impact that it's had. I've been going through an experience here now over the past couple of weeks with respect to Baird Rustin Park and working to form a Friends of Baird Rustin Park. It's been an incredibly encouraging experience just to see how quickly residents were interested and activated in being part of that kind of endeavor. I truly believe that that type of endeavor could be replicated for our other parks as well. So to the degree that we can be proactive and engage those communities and residents around the other parks, I think it can do nothing but benefit us. I think it's obvious, certainly to all of you and everyone else, that the borough has limited resources, financial, personnel, and to the extent that we can engage the community, maybe take a little bit of that burden from a Parks and Rec perspective off of the borough and have some engaged and considerate residents be a part of the parks and the betterment of the parks. I think it's very important. So would love to be a part of that type of initiative. As far as just kind of some general community activities that I'm a part of, multiple boards. I don't know if you have my bio, but a fairly extensive community involvement, whether that is board involvement, whether that is in volunteering or committee involvement. So I do believe that I bring a collaborative focus to all of the activities involvement that I'm part of, and I would do the exact same here, Parks and Recreation Commission.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Reese? Lisa.
Mr. Reese, where do you think you can make the biggest impact for Parks and Rec? One of the first things you tackle.
So I think first, and like anything else, you kind of have to walk before you run. And I think it'd be very important to obviously get to know. I'm a firm believer that the new guys should listen a little bit before they make any kind of moves or suggestions. So obviously get to know the other committee members, certainly get to work with Keith and kind of hear his expectations and the borough's expectations. But again, as I mentioned, just my relatively extensive community involvement I would like to think has given me a bit of a skill set in working collaboratively towards common goals in multiple situations. So I would hope that, as I mentioned, some of the knowledge that I'm gaining through the efforts around the Friends of Association, the potential to be able to employ that and maybe even kind of create a model of that could be scaled out to the other parks. I would hope that that's kind of a venture that would be worth undertaking within the committee. So again, listen and learn, but also try to bring some fresh suggestions, some fresh perspective, and just something that we can all work together to, make sure that the quality of place that we all enjoy today continues.
Thanks, Mr. Reese.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, I will say there's one opening on the Recreation Commission. And as a general matter, I think that this is the most full slate of candidates we've ever had for our boards and commissions, where we actually have a number of positions where we're going to have to choose between obviously well-qualified candidates. That's both a blessing and a curse in that, it's nice to have so many people who are willing to volunteer for our community that we have an abundance. It's a curse in that we're going to have to pick between multiple well-qualified candidates across various boards today. I'll encourage anyone who doesn't get selected for the position they applied for to please keep checking the website. People move out of town, people resign from boards, and positions open throughout the year. So if you don't get something today that you were hoping for, please continue to look and try and be involved. We would appoint everybody today if we could. Some commissions allow for more than, have at least this many people, and some commissions have, there will be 7 members, and this is one that says that. So unfortunately, we can't go over that, but like I said, we do really appreciate everyone in this room for volunteering and be willing to come here tonight and put in the time in the future. So if you don't get anything tonight, please continue to look for opportunities. But with that long-winded speech, I'll let you go.
It's a good problem to have people more engaged, right?
Yeah.
So thank you, Council, for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much. The next commission on our list is the Library Board of Directors, and the first applicant is Christine Kincaid. John, I'd like to revise my estimate up significantly. I apologize. Ms. Kincaid, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're interested in joining the library board and what you think you would bring to that position.
I'm Christine Kincaid, lived in the borough, and I live in East Bradford for the last 12 years. I am a project manager for the last 25 years, currently working for a salon. In that role, I deal with strategic thinking, so I feel like we're always planning the next year. So I'm always 1 year ahead in my planning. I also work with compliance and personnel issues. I also did a large historic restoration project, Frick's Lock in Limerick. I worked with Friends and Friends Associates who did the the library renovation project. So I've learned a lot about historic renovation and restoration, and a little bit about the library itself. And I think that my current skills would be an asset to join the board. I feel like the library has always been a part of my life for the time I was a child, and I checked out, Charlotte's Web to now where we have e-materials, and just the course of COVID's probably changed the library for all of us. Life in general has changed for all of us. So I'd like to be part of the next thing for the library.
Thank you. Did you say you live in West Goshen now?
East Bradford.
East Bradford, I'm sorry.
I live in
Thank
East
you.
Bradford.
Any other questions for Christine? Lisa?
Thanks, Mr. Gailey. Ms. Kincaid, I'll ask you the same question. Where do you think you can make the biggest impact for the library?
I think probably working with my alumni board, and also as a mom, I've done a lot of fundraising and volunteer efforts with the community. So I think that's usually the biggest impact that I can bring, is that enthusiasm, and then just the skill set and the know-how to get more volunteers in, and then hopefully a little bit of money too.
Thank you. Fundraising is definitely an ongoing goal of the library.
Yes.
Any other questions for Ms. Kincaid? Well, this is a position, again, that we're very fortunate to have 3 applicants for 1 opening. So I do appreciate you applying. We will make a decision and let everyone know.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next applicant for the Library Board of Directors is Katie Van Schezick. How did I do, Katie? Okay, I'll take that.
I say Von Schezick. But that's
Schezick,
fine. Yes.
okay. Ms. Von Schezick,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're interested in joining the library board, and what you think you can bring to that role.
I am a 18-year resident of the borough, live right around the corner from the library, and raised 5 children, and I'm a new empty nester, so I'm thinking it's time to give back, and a lifelong lover of books. And I also have 4 grandchildren who live within walking distance of the library. So it seems like such a great resource for our town. It's a huge admirer, of course, of Benjamin Franklin. We have a public library. My graduate studies were in philosophy, so I'm also someone who loves to think and discuss. And I do a little bit of writing, so that's me.
What type of writing?
Pardon?
What type of writing? Poetry, fiction?
Yeah, I try to bring sort of philosophical concepts into day-to-day living through articles and blog.
Cool. Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Von Schezick?
Schezick, yes.
Lisa?
Ms. Von Schezick, same question. Where do you think you can have the biggest impact at the library?
Yeah, I find that hard to say. I would say proximity and availability, but I would also, like someone else said earlier, would have to do a lot of learning. Because I would be new to the role. I'd like to see what it involves, but I certainly bring love of books and an interest in education and an interest in our cultural heritage to the job. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other questions for Ms. Von Schezick? Oh, I think you knew the answer was going to be no, and I respect that. Thank you very much for your time. The next applicant for the library board is Paul V. Sukezian. Oh man, I must have murdered that. He's laughing at me from the back of the room. All right.
My last name's always a question or sort of that kind of inflection, so however you want to say it is fine. But
Tell me the right way.
oh, well, if you really want to get into it, it's Sukiasian.
Sukiasian. All
But,
right.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my best, Mr. Sukiasian.
Thank you. Well, but really, the main position that I applied for was the historical commission, and Dana encouraged me to also do library, and because I was interested in it, but in light of there being other candidates, I, don't want to make it too hard on you, so I would, have you consider the other two instead of me for library, and I would focus on historical council.
I totally want to switch gears then and talk about the historic commission.
I don't want to mix things up too much. So if you want to go to the others, go ahead.
No, it's okay. My plan was when anybody came up that had
Okay.
applied for another position, I got thrown up for a second because it looks like we have two von Scheiks.
Yeah.
And that threw me off. So why don't we talk about the historic commission then? Tell us a little bit about why you're interested in the historic commission and what you think you would bring to that role.
All right, great. I became interested in the position, and yeah, as it says, I'm a Westtown Township resident, but I do a whole lot in the borough. I've lived in this area my entire life, and as of late, especially, I've gotten really into the history of Westchester and promoting it. I've kind of organized these tours over the past few months that have been going around in the borough, getting the word out about the history of the town, what happened here over the past 300 years, that I really feel like while the Westchester borough itself definitely has its own community, its own people, I feel like at the same time, there are so many people around it in the more kind of commuter aspects of the area, like me, the right outside the borough, who are very much still a part of the wider community of Westchester and the borough, but don't always have that long history with the place and don't always, I feel like, appreciate it or know just how cool the history here is. So that is my primary reason for wanting to do this. Actually, on one of my tours, a former member of the committee encouraged me to apply for it. So I looked into it further and liked the idea. So that's my interest. I was a history major at Villanova. I do a lot of amateur research and on the side for various aspects of local history, immigrant history to America, and hopefully a book that I helped edit with a scholar will be coming out next year if Syracuse University Press, things go well. It's been delayed already a couple of years for different reasons, but hopefully that's coming. So that's my background with history.
Well, the tours that you do, are those through a local organization or are those? Which
Yes, it's, well, I have been in contact with the Historical Society as well, which also ended up doing a very similar thing. It's funny because years ago they asked me to do the historical tours because they had gone dormant for a while. So then I decided to do it, and now they're starting to do tours as well. So I'm like, but I already planned this. I want to do it. So, but I don't see myself as a competitor to them. I always cite the fact that a lot of my information came from there and just getting the word out about what else they're doing, because my tours are kind of have one theme, whereas the Historical Society has a ton of others. So I'm always sure to tell people on it to look into theirs, because I'm not trying to fight with them. And I think it's the more we have people coming into town and learning about the history in any respect, increases the odds that they'll come back for more of those types of things. And we don't have enough of that at this point. And I really appreciate what the Historical Society is doing to raise the profile. And so I think, my ideal is we have tons of people from the borough and the surrounding townships who are all really invested in learning about our history here and promoting it in various ways.
Cool. Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Sukiasian?
That's what I'm going to ask.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Where do you think you can have the biggest impact on the historical committee?
Well, I have past experience already from the Westtown Historical Commission, Westtown Township, so I do that as well. And what I would really, kind of be the more evangelist out there to
the community because, making more of an impact, people knowing what we are. And I do see some signs of this. I don't know everything that they've done. And so I'm not, from the outside too able to speak for it. But I do appreciate things like on the new Sedona building that we have, the plaque about the man that ran the oyster bar there. And what we don't know, and what I talk about on my tour, is that Westchester had, in that period of the late 1800s, early 1900s, at least 8 different African-American owned oyster houses, which is a thing that no one in Westchester really talks about until now. You have that little sign that gives you a hint of it, but there's so much more. Some of them were escaped slaves that came up from North Carolina. And for example, the Spence's, who then Spence's Cafe is named after, and that's a cool little connection too. And so just kind of, getting people interested in those ways and those little, the little plaques, the little signs, not that I think is the main thing I'm, going for, putting up plaques, but that's an example of how we can kind of root people more in our history. Because, you're so used to walking up and down Gay Street, Market Street, and you just take for granted, like, yeah, this is how it is, but it's been so much more over the centuries. And so I want to bring that back to the people today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
I'm just curious to know what your favorite fact is that you tell people on your tours
Oh,
or just
wow.
in your life. If you could pick one.
We're
Well,
going to get a free
interesting.
tour right now.
Yeah, well, no, if you're willing, I'm down, so yeah, let me contact me. Probably have my info. If you want to do a tour, you could always come out and see what it's like. I'll especially when it gets warmer too, but people really want some Christmas tours. And so I'm doing it because in Victorian era, also, they really like the whole like spooky aspect of things. So I tell some of the stories. Westchester is said to be really, really haunted too. So that's an interesting part of the history that gets more people into it who might not normally go on a history tour. But one thing is funny is so many people bring up the Underground Railroad and how their house was on the Underground Railroad, which in fact probably wasn't, but there are possibilities. But the two coolest stories are, one is that it is said, and this comes from the Historical Society, so I'm taking their word for it, that under the courthouse there is a tunnel that goes the entire length of Market Street down to what's now the Justice Center, which was the prison, which was, and it was bricked up back in the 60s, unfortunately. But if anyone can look into opening that up, it'd be amazing for tours. But yeah, the prison on the site of the historical, on the Justice Center was designed as well by Thomas U. Walter, who did the Capitol building and our own courthouse building. And the other cool one is just about the 1843 ordinance that restricted burials in Westchester, and then they ended up digging everybody up. And that's always kind of fun to talk about, that whole, and they didn't get everybody, as it turns out. So there might still be some, who knows? So I kind of point that out when we're walking over St. Agnes in particular. Like, yeah, there are definitely some people still here, but anyway, yeah. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Mr. Galley.
Yeah, go ahead, Bernie.
Paul, I will not try to say your last name.
Yep, that's fine.
How did you try to get the word out on your tours?
Well, it's been interesting. That's for sure. It was my idea, and I teamed up with a marketing group who does their own tours in Westchester. So they were the initial ones, but then something happened I won't go into, and suddenly I was doing it on my own, and they were doing it as well. So we went from having 0 tours in Westchester to 3, counting the Historical Society. But so it was kind of a real last minute thing because I thought I was working with one group and then I wasn't. But I've had a lot of success actually at a couple of different Facebook groups of all places. I was doing, the advertising on Facebook and Instagram, and it was like getting 3 or 4 clicks and there's $10 down the drain for almost nothing. And yet I had some, interesting worded and fun kind of takes on what I do. And I got a big response at a group called Westchester Community and a couple other different Westchester themed groups on Facebook. So that's done more than anything for me. But I plan next year to have a lot more, better signs and things in windows and more times to come up with that. But I really think, social media is the way, but not actually advertising for it so much because that hasn't done so much for me, at least not my experience yet.
Well, the reason why I brought it up is because I have about 1,000 playbills at my house.
Oh.
I'm the guy that keeps taking them down because it's illegal to post them on public property. So,
Well, is this the Sleuth Hound
no,
name?
no, I don't know if it's yours or whatever else.
Because this guy has been doing stuff with my signs, so I
Yeah.
don't.
No, if I'll apologize to you now.
No.
If you're, Chesco Tours, I have all your literature, because I've been going around town actually taking it down. So,
Well, that is the question, because this guy has been doing things with my signs. I have some in stores and such, but.
yeah, so we'll talk later. But-
Okay.
But the fact is, we consider that graffiti, if you put it on public property. So I walk around twice a day and take down stuff around town, so,
Takes it home and he uses it for macrame.
yeah,
Oh.
not really, but thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions relevant to the Historic Commission for Mr. Sukiazian? I'm trying. All right, thank you so much. For the Historic Commission, I believe that's a commission that is a 9 or more. I think we have the ability to appoint all of our applicants to the Historic Commission.
Oh,
So
I thought I figured that I was out of the running at this point.
I think that just got you right back.
Because to be totally honest, yeah, I've put up a couple over the years over the past month or two, because this person was ripping them down inside of places, and it's
Bernie.
It's been a mess, to tell you the truth. And then he was moving them around, and so I don't know which ones you found where or what's going on, but it became this very ugly situation that I won't go into now. But yeah, thank you for letting me know the situation, because I clearly didn't know, because I see signs all the time, and
It's always easy to ask forgiveness and permission.
Kyle Hudson's watching. This is a great subject for a mini documentary, the Westchester History Tour Wars.
Oh yeah, it's been a
Sounds like
war, that's for sure.
Sounds like it's fertile ground for a documentarian. Thank you very much for your time today and your willingness to serve. Like I said, we can appoint, I think, all the applicants, so we will make our decision and let you know.
All right, appreciate it.
It was nice listening to you today. Thank you. The next, we're going to jump back up to the zoning hearing board. Our candidate for that is, our first candidate is Jules Von Schaik. I think I got it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're interested in joining the zoning hearing board, and what you would bring to that role.
Well, like Katie said, we've lived in the borough now for about 15 years. Love it here. Raised 5 kids, they're gone now. So I have some time to give something back. That's the basic reason I applied. Let's see. Well, the zoning board seemed like no special skills needed. That was the reason I picked that one. And then I'm Dutch, so I lived, I was raised in the Netherlands in a little village. With Katie, we studied in Austria, Netherlands. So we've lived all over the place. Have lots of experience of towns, different towns. Love this one, but possibly my experience can help zoning decisions.
Great. That's very cool. Any questions for Mr. Von Schaik? Lisa? I'm going to ask Lisa's question. Is there anything about the zoning hearing board that interests you in particular?
Well, not the hearing board necessarily. I'm interested in zoning somewhat and how it shapes towns. So I read a little bit about that both have read some books on it, the New Urbanism, Atlantic towns in general. There's my experience from various towns and asking myself what makes difference in these towns, and often has to do with zoning. I'm not sure if that's part of the zoning board. From what I hear, it's more a question of coming and they wanting variance, so.
Yeah, from
So-
time to time. I was on the zoning hearing board before I was on council. That's a big part of it. Sometimes people are cited, often for having college students living in a non-college rental, and they'll appeal the citation and that'll go to the zoning hearing board.
So there, I figure it's just a question of, applying some common sense to the rules and maybe from time to time, maybe exception is necessary and warranted.
Cool. So the zoning hearing board, there's one position available on it, but the zoning hearing board also has alternate roles. So we can have one permanent member and then an alternate member. The alternate members can go to the meetings, but when someone's absent, the alternate member would become a voting member of the hearing board. So we will make our decision and let you know. But really appreciate both you and your spouse volunteering.
Both of me and my spouse. I get it.
You're both independently volunteering for separate positions. And we will be in touch.
All right.
Thank you so much. The next applicant for the zoning hearing board is Terrence Keenan. Mr. Keenan? How are you? Same thing. A little bit about yourself, why you're interested, what you'd bring to the role.
Let's see. I go by Terry Keenan. Construction company, I guess, for 25 years. Lived in the borough 25 years ago, moved out to West Town, raised my kids there. I also have 5 kids. Here I am. Also had an office. I lived on Price Street. I also had an office on Church Street, on Market Street. I'm also going for the Historic Commission. I've been doing construction, like I said, for 30 years. Own my own company for 5. Mostly residential renovations, a lot of like historic buildings. I worked on the Oakmore Commission in West Town. There, I think I won. I know we are Westchester a long time ago. I first came out on Church and Dean, so I love this town. My kids wish I moved back sooner. They're all now, so. But yeah, that's kind of my experience in.
Great. Would you be interested in both the zoning hearing board and historic commission, or are you looking to serve on one?
My wife said get out of the house as much as
Should we just put you on all of them?
Yes. I have a lot of energy, and so and this house is a little smaller. So there's not so much to do. So, and construction is my hobby, as she would say.
Okay. It certainly seems like your resume makes sense for both roles. Any other questions for Mr. Keenan?
I can ask one, Terry.
Uh-oh.
You said you lived in this town, or you did live in this town?
Out of Westchester. Oh, I live on Market Street as of last week. I was living at Chestnut Square for.
He said that.
And I've worked with these guys before.
Yeah, we apologize for that. Any other questions for Mr. Keenan? All right, well, thank you very much. As I've said, we'll be in touch, but appreciate your volunteering, and we'll do our best to help your wife out.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for listening. See you.
Thanks. The next commission and last person who we're interviewing for the Historic Commission is Miggy Mason, who is participating by Zoom this evening. Hi, Miggy.
Hi, Mike. Hi, how are you?
I'm well. Miggy is also one of my neighbors. So Miggy, I'm not sure how long you've been listening, but if you can, tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're interested in the Historic Commission and what you think you would bring to that role.
Sure, yeah. So I am a co-owner of an interior design firm that focuses on historic homes. And I also live in the borough in a historic home, and I'm working on restoring it. I've been interested in historic preservation since I was a kid, and I've been involved in it through courses I took in college when I was getting my degree in interior design. I took courses in historic preservation. I also have worked on many historic properties as a designer over the last 11 years. And since relocating to Westchester, I really wanted to become more involved in the local community. And when I found out about the Historic Commission opening, I jumped at the chance to apply. Through my work, I've been meeting with local architects that specialize in historic properties and meeting with tradespeople and craftspeople that are dedicated to the field. And so I've been making some really great connections and honestly just blown away by the amount of people that live right here in Westchester that are dedicated to the field. It's amazing, just right here in the community, how many craftspeople and tradespeople and industry people there are right here in Westchester. And I also want to say I was just blown away and really inspired by the preservation awards. I got to attend those last month, and it's just amazing the passion for it here, and just really exciting to see. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me. Did I answer everything? I'm trying to think what else I can tell you.
I think you got it all.
Okay.
Any questions for Miggy from anyone else on council?
Same question, Mr. Gailey. Where do you think you can have the biggest impact?
Yeah, sure.
Historical Commission.
So I would say as a small business owner and also as a designer, I have a lot of experience and with project management. I value partnerships and know the importance of good communication. And I think developing relationships and collaborating and bringing people together for a common cause is something that's really important that I love to do. I think kind of my the career that I'm in and the industry that I work in, as well as my role as a small business owner, I think would add a lot of value to the commission.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Miggy? All right, like I've said, we can appoint multiple people to the Historic Commission, so we will make our decision and let you know. Thank you so much for coming tonight, Miggy.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, the next commission is the Sustainability Advisory Ad Hoc Commission. I believe we have 2 positions available for that and 2 candidates. The first is the one and only Don Braceland.
Would you mind if, while I'm here, because I was up at Campus Coalition, let me talk too?
Of course.
Okay, and I'll answer Lisa's question. My background was in healthcare for about 45 years, both technical and in management. And in every hospital I worked, this will be just going to go off on the Campus Coalition. I'll do that in a minute. With the sustainability, I mean, I've been on council 8 years, and for the last 6 years, I've been involved with a number of environmental issues. I'm on the board of the Westchester Green Team and also the Don't Spray Me group, which is dedicated to trying to reduce or eliminate spraying of mosquitoes in the borough. That's been an adventure, I'll tell you. And it's just something I've developed a real interest in. I've also dealt with the Clean Water Alliance in Philadelphia. Went before Philadelphia City Council along with Jim Wiley, who I think is here, yes, to try to convince them or to tell them how we put together our plastics ban. And I told them at the end, just do it. Well, they did. Not right then, but they did. And so that works. It's just something that interests me. And to answer Lisa's question about what would I bring to it or what impact would I have a particular interest in Goose Creek. And it's personal opinion, I think it's long past time that we did some remediation work on there. However, the price tag is high. But it's something that I've studied, actually found a study from 1989 that discussed all the creeks in the borough. There were 2 more in here that I didn't know about. But anyway, that's my interest. But with everything that I've learned over the last 6 years, I'm in a good position to keep moving forward with all the borough's sustainability efforts and clean energy, that sort of thing. In terms of community campus committee, virtually every hospital I worked in or healthcare entity, I wound up doing a lot of public relations work. I did a lot of writing, did a lot of community outreach stuff, especially in Philadelphia. With that, I would always throw in a nice healthy dose of marketing because the departments that I managed always could use more patients coming through the door. And I found it was pretty that because I was always able to increase the level of business in any department that I managed. But now, as was once said, I can see the university from my house. And I went there a long time ago, shortly after the dinosaurs became extinct. And I remember I did everything that these guys do. I remember that. I kind of miss it. So I think I'm in a good position to understand that mindset. I'm probably one of the residents that lives over in university that I enjoy having the students around, except when they're crossing the street and they're texting. But it's just, in total, being on council has been a very rewarding experience for me. I've learned a great deal, and I would like to continue serving the borough in whatever capacity I can. There's one more thing I was going to say. Guess not.
I'll let you come back to it.
Oh, I know what it was. From being on council, you get to know, this kind of gets back to Lisa's question to a certain extent. You get to know a lot of people. If you need to get something done, you know who to go to get something done. And if that person doesn't do it, they know the person that you go to get something done. And if they don't know it, you ask Mr. Flynn. So I'm able to work very effortlessly with community leaders. I know how the government works. I know what the borough can do, what it can't do. So if you get an idea that I would be able to know right off the bat whether that's something we'd be able to pursue. So it's just, I think my knowledge of the borough, local government, the area surrounding here, because I'm also on the Westchester Area Council of Governments, so I get to know what's going on in the surrounding areas. But spoke longer than I intended to, but that's enough. Thanks.
Thanks, Don. Any questions for Don?
I have a question, Don, and it's more geared towards the community campus committee. Just from your perspective, what do you think the main goal of that committee should be? What do you think the major issues they really need to tackle are?
The impossible question. The issues that I hear most often are noise, partying on porches. We all know what these things are. Parking is a big deal. Certain times of the year, trash everywhere is a big deal. You're not going to stop it. There's no way it's going to stop. But I think you can come up with some, I was going to say program, that's not a good word. Just some way of, or as part of a student's orientation, just letting them know that, yeah, you can have fun, but you still live in a community, and don't be surprised if people honk their horn at you. And I think that's something that orient them to early on, and maybe just reinforce it. It wouldn't be hitting them over the head and crossing the street, basics. can't fix it, but you can, I think you can modify it. And also you get some of the student/residents to work with you. Because the requests that we would have would not be unreasonable. Plus, I had already had 6 cans of beer and
Thanks, Don. Any other questions for Don? I thought you were going to ask if he knew how to lay railroad track. All right, the next candidate who is for the Community Campus Committee is Francis Curtis. Who is a resident of Ward 4, I believe.
Fourth Ward. I have lived in the borough for 6 years. I'm from the Westchester area in general, so I've been really familiar with the borough my whole life. I'm also a Westchester alum. So, and I can see the campus from my house. From, from the back of my house, I sit right next to campus, so I'm very familiar with the goings-on of students and campus, and I think I can offer a good perspective as a resident, as a student. I do understand that the campus and the students are part of the economy of Westchester and part of the fabric of Westchester. I think it's important to engage with them some more and come up with maybe solutions together that we can maybe come up with some ways to fix some of the more nuisance problems like trash, noise. I don't know if you're ever going to fix that. And some of the nuisance crime type items. I think we can use technology or maybe some other, maybe more innovative ways to engage the campus community to feel more free to maybe to report issues without having to contact the police, so to speak. Maybe some kind of innovative ways to maybe engage that a little bit better. But also to engage some of the communities on campus. I do see some of the sororities and fraternities, they do have like trash pickup days and other initiatives. They try and help out, so maybe take more advantage of that, see what we can do with that.
Great. Any other questions for Ms. Curtis?
Ms. Curtis, where do you think you can have the biggest impact initially?
That's a good question. I mean, I think really just trying to develop that communication stream between the community representatives and residents is where I'd like to focus first. I am an action-oriented type person, so I'd like to have a plan and get things done and not belabor over, death by meeting, so to speak. So I do believe in kind of, having some initiatives and taking action on this as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Any other questions for Ms. Curtis?
I'm sorry we've never met. You're a constituent of mine in the Fourth Ward, and
Yeah.
you're on South High Street.
Yes.
How much do you love those crosswalks? Are they?
So that is probably my biggest concern actually is safety. I'm more concerned, I know students probably get injured at least once a year, probably more than that. I've witnessed a couple accidents on South High Street with pedestrians, and I think we can do better at providing a safe way for students to cross. I don't know if you're ever going to get mid-street crossing vanished. There's too many crosswalks in a way, but if there was better lighting, I think people don't realize how much they can't be seen at night.
Thanks. Any other questions for Ms. Curtis? Thank you so much. Again, this is another committee where we have more applicants than spaces available. The committee is designed in an interesting way in that there's a designated representative from Ward 4, a designated representative from 2W, a couple at-large folks, and then actually a couple people from the business community are tended to be on the committee.
And from the diversity community?
Yeah, yeah, we don't get to appoint those people
Right.
though. Everyone else we do.
Okay.
So we will make our decision and let you know, but thank you again for volunteering. I appreciate it. The next candidate is Marty Nable, a resident of
Mr.
2W.
Mr. Gailey, did we skip over Ms. Fork?
Oh my gosh, Megan. I'm so sorry. It's not a bad omen, I promise. It's just incompetence. You are also applying for the Sustainability Advisory Committee. Don totally threw me off by jumping down to the CCC. Tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're interested in that committee, and what you think you would bring.
Yeah, sure thing. So I am a relatively new resident of the borough. I just moved here in July, actually, to start a faculty job at the university, where I'm a professor of biology, and my background is in ecosystem science, particularly working on issues in urban streams and stormwater. So my interest was really piqued by the description of this committee, and it's like kind of stormwater being in its purview. I have worked with, in addition to kind of the basic scientific research that I've done in systems like this, I've done some work with municipalities and the state of North Carolina, thinking about stormwater management and nutrients in stormwater and stuff like that. So I like live, eat, and breathe this stuff. I really get excited about it. And I get walk by the rain gardens just out here, get really excited about that and thinking about the opportunities for managing stormwater and for the other kinds of sustainability things that Don brought up. So.
Cool. Will Williams, who is, amongst other things, the person in charge of our stream protection fee, is cheering as you talk about stormwater management. So
Awesome.
That's a good sign. Any questions for Megan? I don't think you should take our silence as a bad sign. That was very impressive. I also believe that the Sustainability Commission has 2 openings and 2 candidates, which makes good odds for you and Don. Thank you very much for applying. You certainly seem beyond well qualified for the role, and we will let you know.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Megan. Sorry I skipped you. Marty, let's try this again. Nable. I said Nable. I'm sorry. Nable.
Yep.
Third try's a charm.
That's all right. Mine's only 5 letters, and it's still difficult to get people to pronounce it correctly.
All right. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in this commission.
My name is Marty Nable. I'm actually a fairly recent resident of Westchester. We moved in 2018, Walnut Street. Love the neighborhood, love the house. The reason we bought the house was the university. There's certainly issues with living amongst university students, but I kind of liken it as buy a house and a golf course. You probably should be expecting a couple of golf balls. So there's definitely, that. I actually already volunteer with another university and sit on their business advisory committee, so I'm somewhat involved in the academic side there. I think there's a couple opportunities. I saw the pitch deck that was put together. I think a lot of that the framework's already there. I think it's a matter of execution. I think getting together with a university, listening to what they want to do and what is important. I think also, frankly, maybe also working with the university, have them a bit more attentive to, a little more advertising of what they can bring to us. So there's a lot of activities that go on at the university that are publicly accessible, and they're hard to find. So I think there's an opportunity also for us to collectively work towards bringing us to them versus just working to deal with some of the other issues in the borough. Yes, trash is a problem. Some parallel parking lessons for some of the newer students.
That may be the best idea yet.
Well, you can always tell the new ones that come in that year because they have a little bit of difficulty the first couple of weeks trying to park because they probably never have. But yeah, and it's just an opportunity for me as a new resident to maybe get a little involved and serve within the.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Nable?
Just a comment. I saw in your CV wingspan. I am a former Sanchez FIS employee, so I remember that wingspan bank many.
Oh yeah, that was fun. It was a
Was
total
fun.
It was a total failure, but it was fun.
Any other questions for Mark? Well, thank you very much for applying. We appreciate it, and we will be in touch. The next candidate, we've already spoken with Jordan, so the next candidate will be Nicole Shimoni. How did I do? Okay. Tell me the right way.
Nicole Shimoni.
Shimoni.
But I will tell you, when I went to Italy, they told me I pronounced my last name wrong. So, it's all subjective.
Wow, what do they know? Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in being on this committee.
So, I born and raised in Westchester. I've been up here before. And, I'm always looking for ways to serve the borough and be part of the community and make things better. I live right in the heart of the students, where the students live, Keystone Alley, which is an alley off an alley in between Walnut Street and Matlack Street, near Jake's and Rigtown and all that good stuff. So I lived there. I graduated from Westchester University just a little bit after Don. And when I was there, it's funny, I always look, because I kind of partied at this 501 South Walnut Street house. And so now I walk past it all the time, and it kind of warms my heart knowing what happened in that house, that it's still standing. So, kudos to the owner keeping it going. But, I have that perspective. I know what it was like to be a student in Westchester, striving for good grades, but also to have a good time. And I know what it's like to be a resident living in the general area around the students. And so I think that I have an opportunity to really work with and connect with the students, because I kind of understand both sides of the picture. I've already been trying to do what I can to help the community. I work with a food rescue. And Jordan, you may have found a flyer in your mailbox. I'm running a food drive with Rigtown, and I originally did one back in the spring that helped the Salvation Army and brought pounds to them, pounds of food. This past fall, I found out that actually there's a large food insecurity problem with university students at Westchester. So this particular food drive is actually going to benefit the Westchester Food Pantry. So that's just one thing that, I'm trying to do already to help work with the community and help Westchester students, have a better time of it. Otherwise, Lisa, to answer your question, my role, what I do for a day job is I'm a project manager. And what that entails is listening to a number of perspectives, number of ideas coming my way, trying to make sense of it, and helping to move a process or a project forward. So I think when we're on this committee and, listening to different perspectives and different things that are needed, I think that I can listen and hear what's going on and really help the team work together to drive improvements and processes and make things better for both the students and those of us who live there along with the students. Personally, I think the students are there, and they definitely are just trying to be good people and learn and have a good time and have a good life. Already, where I live, for instance, we had our parking area repaved this past fall. And all I had to do, because when we were getting it paved, the students, they park, and they don't necessarily park exactly where they should park. And their cars were going to get, in the way or get tar on them or what have you. All I had to do was knock and say, hey, do you guys mind if you move your cars? We don't want them to get messed up. We're getting this done. You can move them back, in 2 days. They rushed to move their cars. They want to do the right thing and be a good member of the community. So really, when I heard that this program was being developed, this committee was being developed, I was like, wow, this is great. I mean, I think you were there. You're like, if you don't know when it actually is applying, let me know. Because I was so excited about the idea of partnering with the students and really working together to make things better. So that's why I'm here. And I know it's a crowded field, but hopefully I can help.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Ms. Shimoni? All right, well, thank you so much for volunteering, and I appreciated hearing from you. At last, but certainly not least, is Brian Travis, a resident of 2W. Hi, Brian. Well, Brian comes up. If any of the Westchester grads want to teach me beer dye, I've been dying to learn, so call me.
Council.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to join this committee, Brian.
Yeah, I'm 15-year resident also. I know that there's some other long-term residents here. Here from Washington, D.C. back in 2006. and fell in love with the town because it's so much like parts of DC where I lived for 10 years and loved. However, obviously the area is a lot more affordable. But love the architecture, love what the town has done to really maintain the sort of preservation aspect of it, and it was one of the reasons why we wanted to move here in the first place. After being here for 15 years, I have two kids, both 15-year-old and a 16-year-old. But at this point, started to realize, we've been here for a long time, and this is the place I've lived the longest. It's time to start getting more involved in the community, being a little bit more active. I've recently become one of the key persons, Democratic Westchester of the CCDC, along with some other people. So wanting to get more involved generally in government, just basically get skin in the game. My wife is a professor at Westchester University, so I know a lot from both angles. We're a resident in a high traffic area with a lot of students, but also, I have a lot of empathy because one of the reasons we wanted to move here in the first place was because of the culture and arts that the university brings, and we benefited from that in many aspects because my wife is so tied into the college here. When Jordan originally came up with this idea that we, haven't had very great relationships for the last several years between the university and especially some of the, areas of Westchester that were probably most impacted by, the concentration of students such as 2W and 4. I wanted to jump at the chance to get involved in helping sort of make sure that relationship, I was actually surprised that it wasn't tighter in the first place. Seems like almost a prerequisite for a town that has a university in it and vice versa, that you would have a strong bond and open communications and making sure that the flow of information and the issues were always on the table. So it was a bit of a shocker, but obviously knowing the opportunity, I want to get very involved in that. So I wanted to jump at the chance, and that's why I put my hat in the ring. So to answer your question, Lisa, I bring 20 years of marketing and communications experience, mostly from the strategic side, so Stratcom and marketing strategy. Don, you mentioned something about marketing. Obviously, I think a lot of this has more to do with communications between the university, its students, and the residents, obviously your constituents here, council, to really make sure that we are having conversations and the issues aren't just being hidden or dodged. So I feel like, given the fact that I have a lot of experience in marketing communications, but also from the strategic side. So the aspect of actually uncovering a problem and working on a solution to solve it strategically and then put it in action through project management and some of the other things that we heard from members that are here that have different skill sets. So that's my shtick.
Thanks, Brian. I'm going to be very honest. I was really hoping you were going to bomb.
Really?
And make our decision a little bit easier, but you did the opposite.
Sorry.
So thanks. I very much appreciate hearing from you and your volunteering. Every person that we've heard from for the campus committee seems like they would be a great fit for it. So you've all certainly made our decision difficult. But we will have to make one, and we'll let you all know. That being said, again, to all the candidates, thank you all very much for your willingness to volunteer. We do sincerely appreciate it, appreciate your help for Borough Council and the borough generally. And none of you should feel the need to stay. It will not reflect poorly on you if you sneak out the back right now. You're, of course, more than welcome to. With that, we will move on to item number 5 on our agenda.
So I got no questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. You already answered Lisa, and I didn't even ask anybody else. I got thrown off that Sean's starting to dress like Mike, and it's been distracting me for the last 10 minutes. I know. It's actually quite concerning. He's gonna throw that vest in the trash when he gets home. Thank you to all our candidates again. The next item on the agenda is to discuss directing the solicitor to prepare an amendment to the Home Rule Charter to revise the municipal election process. By way of background, the genesis of this idea was this was a Nick Allen joint on the issue of individuals holding office and being incentivized to remain in that role due to election structure.
Sure. Yeah. So last week we kind of took the issue and split it into two parts. We colloquially called them Part A and Part B. So Part A is, should we allow for an elected official to hold more than one office at one time? And then, if I'm getting that right, that was A. And then B was the more complex proposed schedule for, appointing an interim member, and then what it would look like for the special election, or in this case, special elections, to take place via a petition circulation process, a special primary, and then a special general election to finally complete the remainder of that term to relieve our appointment. And it's my understanding we were waiting on some things from the solicitor, so I'm not entirely sure if we have what we need. Make a decision on that this month?
That's correct. Tom Esty from the solicitor's office is working on that issue, and I think he had a conversation with the president regarding a couple comments you had made at the last meeting. Tom is square on what needs to be done to draft the ordinance. He just hasn't done it yet. So I expect to get that in the next few days. We just don't have it for this meeting. That would be the Part B that Nick is referencing.
Yeah, Tom and I spoke about the goal of council in this discussion on the election cycle piece was to make it so that if you resigned before, the whole issue with the past two mayors has been they had an incentive to stick around for a couple months after they had been elected to statewide office because of the way our election cycle works. And the goal is to remove that incentive, meaning the election cycle would work in the normal process rather than there being a special election in our primary. You would just go through the primary process and then election for the next term as you normally did. So that person, if they were to be elected to a different office and want to resign, wouldn't have to stick around for a couple extra months. So Tom's working on that. Sort of what we tried to, distill into a more coherent thought at the end than I just gave. So it sounds like we should just wait till next month on this one. Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is a discussion about the plastic bag and straw regulation, and specifically the request by some folks in the business community and the bid to remove from that the requirement that owners charge 10 cents per compliant bag. Will, welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Good evening, Will Williams, Sustainability Director. This item includes two potential changes to our single-use waste ordinance, which is set to kick off in 17 days after about 4 years of discussion. There's no recommendation from the ACT Committee, as this was not on the agenda. It came up in the meeting, and we, in the interest of determining the course of the policy, we're asking Borough Council to consider one of these two changes. One of the two changes listed on the agenda, or neither at all, not both, because they are competing. And as background, just keep in mind our ordinance as written bans plastic bags outright and permits paper as a substitute with a 10-cent fee for a paper bag. Bear with me here, I'm going to cover a lot of ground. The second suggested amendment to eliminate the fee on paper bags for takeout and delivery food orders, I think, is good housekeeping. It cleans up a vague section of the ordinance and aids in both implementation of the ordinance by businesses and enforcement by the borough. Delivery is already exempted from the fee, but in a very convoluted, roundabout way, if you read the ordinance carefully. This makes sense. When you deliver, when you have food delivered, you're not able to use a reusable bag. So, why ding someone for 10 cents in that scenario? Takeout is not currently exempted. However, consider that takeout is typically paid for when ordering, either via phone, website, app. And at this point, the business, it's hard for them to anticipate how many bags you need to work into your order. You also don't know if the person's going to come up and pick up their order with a bag or not. So this creates a scenario where you run in, you've already paid, you're picking up your order, and oh, you got to go pay 10 cents for a bag. Or they thought you're going to use 10 cents, they thought you're going to use a bag, charge you 10 cents, and you brought one, then you're waiting on a refund for a dime. That's a nightmare scenario for the customer. It's a business. It's not something that we want to promote through our ordinance. A few businesses have reached out to me about this scenario. It's really the only question that we're getting from the business community. They've all been content to learn that I say, hey, this is also impossible for us to enforce. So do your best. You have a financial incentive. I can't tell you how fast they hang up on me at that point, but we should have clear ordinances that with good guidance on how to comply for a business community. So amending the ordinance to address this scenario by exempting takeout and reiterating delivery is exempt, again, I think is a good idea. On the other hand, the first suggested amendment to make the fee optional, which let's be real, that's eliminating the fee, guts the ordinance of its purpose and effectiveness. As written, our ordinance with a ban on plastic and a fee for paper is known as a second generation bag ban. Almost 100 million Americans live in a state or city with a second generation bag ordinance. The first generation law was a simple ban on plastic. And the evolution to second generation was necessary because simply banning plastic bags and switching to another material is not an effective sustainable waste management policy. The reason is simple: without a fee, or by making the fee optional, which again is the same thing as eliminating it, the 6 million single-use plastic bags used in the borough every year become 6 million single-use paper bags. And paper bags have their own environmental impacts, as we discussed at great length 2 years ago when the ordinance was approved. A ton of independent research has documented that the fee reduces the use of single-use bags regardless of material. In DC, the fee led to a 60% drop in single-use bags. In Chicago, 50%. In San Jose, before the city's law was preempted by a statewide law in California, which is 25 cents for a fee for a bag, a 10-cent fee on paper increased the utilization of reusable bags from 4% of transactions to 62% of transactions. That is a 15-fold increase in the most sustainable option, bringing a reusable bag by implementing a fee. Finally, if you recall, our ordinance was delayed by a report published by the Pennsylvania Independent Fiscal Office. This report projected that the ban plus fee approach would reduce single-use bag utilization dramatically more than any other approach, 54% in the report, which aligns very well with the studies I just mentioned in the 3 cities, and is also the only approach that reduces costs to consumers. What's wrong with paper? Though our ordinance requires paper bags be made of recycled content, that is really difficult. We cannot verify that on a bag-by-bag basis. Nor can we ensure that the bag is recycled at the end of life. Therefore, removing the fee will result in single-use virgin paper going into the landfill. That's probably better than plastic bags going into the landfill, but in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, that is worse than plastic bags. So if we switch to paper and go with paper, we're actually increasing greenhouse gas emissions in our community unless we reduce the overall number of single-use bags. Furthermore, without the fee, the additional cost of single-use bags will continue to be incurred by businesses and passed along to all customers regardless of whether or not you use a single-use bag. And the borough will be responsible for the added cost of the more expensive paper bag. With a fee in place, those costs are instead incurred exclusively by the buyer of the bag, which is a 100% avoidable outcome if you skip the bag or bring your own. So there's a lot going on here, But even our elementary school students who originally petitioned Borough Council on this subject said include a fee to discourage transitioning to a different material with its own problems. The fee has been included in every draft of the ordinance. It was improved in 2019, and for 2 years we've been educating the community on the fee. We're 17 days out. Let's stay the course, keep the fee. Just one more section, I'm sorry. The arguments against the fee are the same as arguments against overall ban on plastic bags, which we've heard before and hashed out in great detail 2 years ago. They say the fee adds cost. Again, with a fee in place, the cost is incurred by the customer, and only if they absolutely need a bag and didn't bring one, which is easy to avoid. They say the fee is an annoyance. Call it what you will. In the policy world, we call it a nudge. A nudge is a small, relatively painless thing that, despite being small, reminds us to rethink business as usual behavior and incentivizes a lower impact option. The average retail transaction in 2019 before COVID, before 10, 15, 20% inflation, was $54.14. A 10-cent fee is 0.2% of that transaction cost. It's an incredibly small price to pay for the reduction in single-use waste that I noted early and that we can expect from our ordinance with a fee. And besides, we can all think of things that are a lot more annoying than 10 cents. Parking meters or taxes. Should we scrap things that serve the best interests in the community? Some people find them annoying. I don't think so. They say people will not come to Westchester because of the fee and businesses will not locate here. We've heard this time and time again about so many different things. COVID restrictions, parking meters, DUI enforcement, utility work, street closures. If you do this, if you don't do this, if you make us do this, it will kill our downtown. Despite the frequency of these threats, our business community is larger and more vibrant than ever, and occasionally having to pay 10 cents for a fee, 10 cents for a bag, if you need one and didn't bring one, is not going to change that. On the contrary, people come to Westchester because it's clean, safe, sustainable, fun place. This ordinance ensures that will only get better. Along those lines, they say Westchester will put itself at a disadvantage by being the only community with this ordinance. West Goshen is voting on an ordinance. It's a carbon copy of ours. Next month in January, they're voting on an ordinance. It's a carbon copy of ours. It includes the fee. East Bradford and West Whiteland are also working on ordinances for next year, which I guarantee will be based on ours. Outside of the Westchester area, the immediate Westchester area, Lower Marion, Malvern, Tredeffrin, Media, Downingtown, Phoenixville, those are just a few that I can think of off the top of my head, are all approaching this issue, and they're looking for us for leadership. It is true that Philadelphia pulled the fee from their ordinance, but let's not look to Philadelphia for leadership on this issue. It was said last week that they omitted their fee, and it must have had a good reason, though we're not sure what it is. If I can be perfectly candid, the fee was scrapped at the last minute following a lobbying campaign by special interest groups, which funneled one-sided negative feedback to elected officials. And an amendment has already been proposed to reinstitute the fee if the ban alone does not reduce single-use bag usage by 80%, which of course it will not. Suffice to say, Philly's kicking the can down the road, and so again, there's a lot going on here, but the second proposed change here on the agenda is probably necessary. Again, it tidies up the ordinance. It issues clear guidance to our business community. The first, to effectively eliminate the fee by making it optional, would gut the ordinance and derail progress on this issue, both in Westchester and the neighboring communities that are looking for us for leadership and guidance. This approach also sends a message to the business community. We hear you. We understand your concerns. We will work proactively on a mutually agreeable solution and amend our ordinance so it works for everyone. However, we are a community that values sustainability and will pursue sound, proven, data-driven environmental initiatives with feedback from our community throughout the process. So I apologize for going long, but I think this is a really important issue. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Will. That was fantastic. Incredibly well presented and well reasoned, and I sincerely very much appreciate the amount of work that you've clearly put into this. Don.
Hi. Don. This, of course, has been an interest of mine for some time. And I've gotten into an almost automatic habit when I'm in any store is to look what will put their stuff in. And what drives me nuts is sometimes, not always, but people go in, one pack of cigarettes, they want a bag. or they go into Wawa, it's the classic, get a hoagie bag. Me personally, I go to a supermarket, if I can't hold it in both my arms, of course, I've usually brought in a bag, but of course, you always see stuff you want to get that you hadn't planned on. But the reusable bags is something I think, we should be pounding people with. It's easy. It's really easy. I mean, all you do is keep one bag on your front wheel well. What I do when I go into a store, first thing I say is, I don't need a bag. That would avoid the landfill issue, the environmental impact. And I remember when Jim and I were down with Philadelphia City Council, there was a woman there, a lobbyist for this was the wood pulp industry or paper bag industry or whatever. She was good. It was good. But I think we should be working towards that. It just because 35 years ago everybody smoked, and you can smoke anywhere. You can't do that anymore, and it's just a question of changing attitudes slowly. So, thanks.
Thanks, Don. Any other comments or questions from council?
Mr. Galley, Bernie Flynn.
Yeah, Bernie.
Mr. Williams, thank you for that presentation. I hadn't paid that much attention to somebody in a long time. The 10-cent charge for the bags. When we first started the journey, I still remember the kids from Friends School. It was pretty interesting. Made me feel embarrassed that I take plastic bags where I go. But when we first started the journey, the 10-cent for the paper bag was to make sure that the business owner was not impacted for an overcharge basic, having to buy a more expensive satchel to take the products away. And now it appears that the object has grown into a different subject. And we started with 10 cents because we didn't want them to take the burden of the money. And now we're moving into a plastic bag versus a paper bag.
Yeah, I think that's actually more perception than truth. When people ask about the fee, the easy response is, well, it covers the cost for the business, and paper bags are more expensive. But like I said, in the student presentation, they included a suggestion about a fee. I was going through stuff which is, predates me by 2 years. There's a memo from Diane LeBold. She really dug into this issue. That included a fee, and everything was always two-pronged. It was one, to cover the costs of the business and sort of take away the argument in doing so that this is, it's not going to increase costs for businesses. It's not going to increase costs for customers unless you need to utilize it. But, it was also always included to ensure that we're not just transitioning to a different material. Plastic presents all sorts of waste management issues. We know that from running a waste management organization, trash and recycling. But the issue here is about, to make up a rough number, it's about a 65% plastic issue, and it's a 35% single-use issue. We're getting 6 million things every year that we use, and there was some study that said, it's disposed of in less than 10 minutes. 6 million things. I don't care how small they are. If we're serious about sustainability, we need to do something about this kind of wasteful behavior. So, from my point of view and from reviewing I inherited this file on this issue when I started here 2 years ago. The fee has always served multiple purposes.
I think what I hear you saying is we should make it 25 cents like California.
It is in California, and between last week and this week, I was in California. I've been there actually 3 consecutive years. First 2 years, I paid for bags. Third time out, I packed them, and I didn't pay for bags.
Mr. O'Brien.
John O'Brien, Executive Director from the Westchester Business Improvement District. First, I think I want to turn down the temperature a little bit here. We heard talks of no one's making any threats that the downtown business is going to be destroyed and that there's special interest and lobbyists and that this is a push for big business. The bid has been working well with the Sustainability Committee. I had a good call with the chair as well. And I do thank Will for his efforts on this. We might not all see eye to eye on this, but the bid represents small businesses, and we have two here today that will be interested if there's any questions. I know that was asked for somebody from the restaurant to come in and kind of explain their purpose here. So we support the underlying premise of getting rid of these single-use plastic bags and the straws. We've done a lot of community outreach ourselves to that end to make sure that our restaurants, our retail are educated about that as well. What we're asking for is that council consider changing the page 6, 81-5, which is the language that says that a business shall charge 10 cents, and we would like to see that to a may charge 10 cents. When this was originally debated in 2019, it was all about, as Councilman Flynn pointed out, the need to compensate the businesses for the changeover from plastic to paper. And, I even looked at Lower Merion's website today, and that was what they referenced. They didn't reference getting rid of paper bags. It was to help the businesses. We have a lot of businesses in Westchester, and you'll hear from one today that will say that they've already done this because they want to be environmentally sustainable. They participate in the Sustainable Storefront program. So making this switch and having this additional fee is something that's another burden for them to try and implement. Because once again, the Wawas of the world, the Rite Aids, the 7-Elevens, outside of the borough, Acme, Giant, they can all comply with this. They have the large resources. When we have a business that is 1 or 2 owners and a couple part-time employees, it becomes a lot more difficult. So we had already kind of talked about, and we do agree with the issue on the delivery and takeout side. So I don't want to belabor that point. But I think one thing that does need to be understood about the customer shopping profile that's different for Westchester than other towns. And when we compare to big cities, it's not necessarily an apples and oranges thing. Is a lot of this comes down, and we think about reusable bags when we go to the grocery store. My wife and I use them all the time. We leave them in the car because that's a planned event that we know we're going to the grocery store, we grab reusable bags. However, in Westchester, whether it's residents, first-time visitors, reoccurring visitors, let's say you're out to lunch or dinner, you're walking around, you see a retail store, something catches your eye, you go in and shop there. You're not going to have a retail bag on your person. And you're not going to be near your car to just say, hey, one sec, I'm going to run out, in the parking lot, grab my car. I think we all understand that in Westchester, that that's not as much of a practical thing. I don't believe that this will, and the bid does not believe that making this change is going to gut the ordinance. I think there is some sense of a transparency issue here to make sure that we're having a proper public debate on the future of paper bags, if that is something that council feels needs to move. The delivery and takeout would take most of the issues for the restaurants, but it would still leave some problems for our local retail community. And I think, I've talked with members of council on this, I've talked with residents on this. People have concerns about the mix of businesses in the downtown, that it becomes too heavily dependent on restaurants and not as much on retail. Because retail is a tough game. I mean, it's going more and more to online shopping, and that hurts not just our downtown. It's not a threat to say that, well, you do this, downtown Westchester is going to be destroyed. Online shopping and that push is a continual problem for the industry as a whole, for many downtowns. So one thing to consider, though, is, for instance, clothing. In Pennsylvania, that's not taxable. So most of our clothing retailers, they price in $1 increments. So that's $5, $18, $22, $32, etc. So they don't deal with change. So now with this 10-cent fee, in terms of purchasing cash, they're going to have to make sure they have change on hand for this, process those coins, and that does become an added problem for them. I think the borough experienced that recently with their meters. it's not always easy to process change as much. And additionally, for their point of sale systems, it becomes problematic as well. For a large corporation that has their own internal system, they can kind of sort out how to ring in a plastic bag, because this ordinance is not just that it has to charge a 10-cent fee, but it has to appear onto the receipt. So to do that, you're going to need to go through your point of sale system. One thing that has been pointed out to me by our retailers a couple times is they could code a paper bag to say that that's a charge so that it appears on the receipt, but then it really screws with their inventory numbers and their turnover rates, which are important for them to kind of evaluate how successful they are, because it will count as an inventory item. So they would need to, at the end of the year, kind of go through and pull out all those paper bags. And that becomes an arduous thing. Now, if you're a large corporation, once again, that's easy. You have internal accountants who can kind of do a reclamation process for them. For the local businesses who have a third-party vendor, because they do not control their own thing, their own point of sale system, it becomes more burdensome in that regard.
I'm not sure I'm buying that argument, John. Wouldn't, let's just say you get a barcode out, an SKU, and you code it as a 10-cent paper bag. You go to do inventory, you just ignore that. I mean, this is all, it's tied to a specific number on both sides of the system, right? You know what.
I mean, the bags are not coded, to be clear.
No, you put the barcode on it, you scan it, your system's going to show that it's a paper bag. That's not an inventory management problem at all. And honestly, if you can't figure that out, perhaps the 10-cent charge isn't the problem. I don't disagree with you.
I mean, I'm simply relaying to council what I am told by the retail industry.
I understand.
So,
I've worked in the retail context in my professional career where we've had to track down various purchases before, and it doesn't strike me that this would be a terribly complicated thing to sort out. I'm not saying that there won't be effort involved to sort it out, but I'm not really buying that aspect of the argument. The change thing is fair. I get that. Certainly that would be a pain. And I know I cut you off, so I'll shut up for a second if you had more you wanted to say.
no, I mean, so that was, somewhat of the conclusion of my points. I didn't want to belabor things that we talked about at the Acts Committee. I do appreciate council's willingness to work with us on this. Once again, as I explained to, the chair of the Sustainability Committee, I don't want this to come across as this is the bid and big business trying to take an axe to the environment.
I don't think anybody's
simply, coming from a small business perspective, because the businesses I represent, and really the businesses that make up, 98% of the businesses in Westchester are small, essentially mom and pop stores. It's much different than when we talk about the large, the Wawas, the Targets, etc.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody thinks that. And honestly, if we thought you were here in bad faith, I would have asked you to stop talking a while ago. So I think everybody here probably assumes that this is a good faith discussion. We just may disagree on what the right answer is. I suspect that, and I don't want to speak for everyone on council, so speak up, but I suspect that the change to the takeout and delivery piece seems like a no-brainer to my perspective. Will's on board with that. You guys are on board with that. Seems like a no-brainer. So it sounds like what we really should focus on right now is the discussion on those charges outside of that context.
Right.
I do think your point is fair that if you walk up into town, you don't always bring a bag. I don't always. My wife happens to have, you remember the Popples? This is a very elder millennial discussion. Do you guys remember those toys? They were like, okay, you had to have a sister, I guess. They were like these little animals that you would pop open and they would fold inside themselves. Anybody here? You have a bag that's like what I'm describing. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I have a bag like that.
That's exactly right. It's like a little bag that folds up into a ball, and she carries that in her purse. And I think that to Will's point, that's a function of our driving behavior through this ordinance to doing something like that. If I'm that retailer, I'm going to put some of those on my counter. And hey, next time throw this in your purse and got a bag.
So,
I'm also, in all honesty, like not sure that I buy that most people would care about a 10-cent charge.
But just so we are clear though, I mean, with the reusable bags, so it's an honest conversation. Nearly all the ones that are being referenced are made of polypropylene, which is a plastic essentially. So
yeah,
they are
but
not
it's
compressed themselves. The real ones.
He's had the bag that I was referencing for like
Right.
13 years. That's the difference, right? My car, I drive a Prius most of the time. That's probably almost entirely plastic, but I've had it since 2013.
Right.
It's the single use aspect of it. If I threw my car away every time I used it, perhaps that wouldn't be the best material for it. I don't disagree. Like certainly there, and hopefully soon we'll have better products. But I would like to hear from the gentlemen who I know have waited here much longer than they hoped to.
Morgan Harris from Meatball U's first one.
Hey, Morgan.
Morgan Harris, Meatball U, located in beautiful downtown Westchester. I guess I will take a little sidebar and probably go back up to item 4 after hearing about the Community Campus Committee. As someone from Meatball U, I do feel uniquely qualified to potentially throw my hat into that ring if you do need a local business to be a part of that.
Actually, we do.
Legally, I am not a university. I do need to point that out. I've been told by my lawyers I do have to clarify that, but I can give you a degree in being a baller and getting some great food. We opened our doors November 2019. We just celebrated 2 years, 2 of the most longest years, world's longest grand opening for us. But we're excited to finally have kids back on campus, our target demographic. Now, we are family owned. We might feel like a chain, look like a chain, but it is my business partner, Dan, and myself. We are 2 small business people who have put our entire life savings into keeping our people employed and keeping our shop open to get us to here. And we've been paper from day one. We're part of the Sustainable Storefronts program. We actually do a bring your own pot special. We won't tell anyone you didn't cook. You bring in your pot. We load you up with spaghetti and meatballs. It's a great Sunday family dinner. Part of our Sunday family dinner special. So we're very into being eco and economically friendly to everybody in town here. We've been using nice paper bags with handles. I will say nice is a figure of speech at this point because getting bags is a challenge in and amongst itself. And we actually had an issue recently with a customer. We got some new bags, we tried them out, and customer got home. The heat from sitting in the back seat melted the glue that holds the bottom of the bag together. Thankfully got it out of the white inside of her car where the spaghetti and meatballs spilled all over her front driveway, and we got an angry phone call in 20 minutes of her telling us about how terrible our bags were. Now, I'm going to be honest, I put probably 2 items in that bag, and I probably should have put 1. But I'm not really looking to argue with people about do I charge you 20 cents or 10 cents to make sure that the food doesn't spill when you get home. Plus, I have 87 forms of payment. I take DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, Ram card, this card, that card, every sort of thing, and there are no mechanisms in place to do that. I called DoorDash, I called Grubhub, I called Uber Eats. There is no way for me to automatically charge them just a straight 10 cents, and I could lose track of how many bags I used to put it in there.
Can I ask you a quick question? If we changed the aspect of the ordinance that was for food delivery and food takeout, that sounds to me like that would solve all of your problems.
That would definitely make my job a lot easier. Now, if you eat in our restaurant and your eyes are bigger than your stomach, and we put it in a container, is that takeout or delivery?
I think that's a great question, and my understanding would be, or what I think the answer should be, and we'll make that clear in the ordinance, is that would be takeout.
Okay. I mean, so that's the big things, right? Like, honestly, I'm not, and I reached out and I asked for an
I think all
exception
those
day
Uber
one.
Eats things, that's a great point, that may not have a mechanism for doing that.
Well, I reached out like day 2, I think to you, through the nice little online portal. And I was like, hey, I called, I tried.
Yeah.
Happy to charge 10 cents. I'll tell you, the 10 cents does not is kind of like spitting into the wind at this point. It's not going to really cover anything, let alone the delivery, especially when DoorDash takes 30% off the top of that. So I'm down to 7 cents. And then I get the credit card fees. And then I pay my college students $10 an hour to put the thing in there. So, you know, I'm fine with everybody keeping the 10 cents. Charging the 10 cents is going to cost me more than 10 cents. And the bag is far more expensive than 10 cents.
So
And
let
if
me
you
ask
find
you-
bags under 10 cents, I will take an entire warehouse of them.
If we changed it such that it was clear that delivery, takeout includes leftovers, that would solve all of your problems.
It would. It would
And I
make
think
this restaurant owner happy.
And, you know, let's do a little thought experiment. Can you think of any reason why any other restaurant would have other issues with that unless they happen to also sell like t-shirts?
We do have sweet merch. That was going to be my next question. We got some great pennants. You can get this entire ensemble on sale at Meatball U. Now, if I throw in a meatball sandwich when you get the merch, how does that work? I mean, granted,
That sounds like something you just don't tell anyone about.
well,
if
see,
you ask me.
I'm a man above board, which I'll tell you in the restaurant industry is a very complicated statement because there are so many little gotchas on.
But I think,
like, I appreciate the fact we're getting rid of the straws. I still have the original box of straws from 2 years ago that we have yet to go through. So we're not a big straw shop to begin with. But like gloves, I go through pallets of gloves a month.
from a point of sale perspective, though, it should be easier on the merch because you're not like Uber Eats isn't picking up t-shirts.
I mean, well, actually, I do sell them on there, but the merch, we typically hand them to them because we're cheap and we don't really want to give them the bag to carry a hat or a shirt out. You should be wearing it with pride out of the restaurant and advertising for us down the sidewalk so we don't have to put posters all around town advertising Meatball U.
Can I make a totally random suggestion? I've been looking at that meatball shirt since we got here. You know, next time you come to council, shoot us an email.
Bring some meatballs.
Dude, we'll pay for it.
It's fine.
I could go for
if you guys
like,
bring your own
a Coke and
pots, that's even better.
meatball sub right now.
Yeah. Meatball and mac is our most popular item in town, actually. The college kids love that.
Next time, you just, bring them with you. We'll pay for them. I think it sounds to me like the vast majority of the issues could be solved through what we've already discussed. I'm also leaning towards suggesting, and Bernie's going to love this, that this is something that we could implement, and in 6 months or a year, if you're saying, actually, this is a huge disaster because like I have to charge 10 cents on my hat or not give them a bag, and like it's actually been kind of a huge pain in the ass. We could change it then. There would be nothing that would prevent us from removing that 10-cent fee in a year, 6 months, 3 months. I'm not going to be here, but talk to Bernie and Mike and
I mean, I think
Nick and Lisa
realistically,
about that.
I think the bigger overarching issue here is the mechanism in which you do it. And it's very easy to say, throw a SKU on the counter, scan the SKU, especially in the restaurant side, like we're all pre-transaction or pre-exchange, right? I take your money before I give you the food and figure out how many bags you need, right? Where in retail, you're post, right? I know how much stuff you're buying, then I can tell you how many bags it's going to take to put it in there.
Yeah, but the hat and the t-shirt thing, that's probably...
The hat and the t-shirt they should be wearing with pride, so I'm good with that. And they should be wearing it out of the restaurant, preferably.
All right. Is there anything else you want to discuss on this topic?
Just as much as I can pitch Meatball U at this point in time, we've just barely survived a pandemic. We'd love you all to stop in.
I respect the hell out of you wearing the hat and the shirt. I think it's brilliant. I think anyone who owns a business and comes here should reference it. That's what I would do. And more power to you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks a lot. Yes, sir. Yeah, please.
Guys, I'll be quick. My name is Jim Wiley. I live at 401 West Lafayette Street. I'm the vice chair of the Sustainability Advisory Committee. I just wanted to make a couple quick points, and that is, even if there's no fee, doesn't mean the bags are free. Merchant is going to cover those costs somehow. They're going to be spread across all the merchandise, and everybody will be charged for it. And those people that bring their bags. Another point I wanted to make to Don's point is that this is about changing habits. It's about changing shopping habits. It's supposed to be a little bit inconvenient to make people think about it. And once we start this process, I predict people will be saying, hey, I'm only getting a salad, one salad. Please don't put it in a bag. It's just leave it on my doorstep or whatever. It will have a reaction. So, one other point I wanted to make, in the ordinance, I believe there is a clause for applying for an exemption. So there is a process for dealing with the unique business cases. And you have to apply every year and be every year, but still there's a process.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate that. John, you had said somebody else was going to come from the business community.
I think.
Did we lose them
in terms of
already?
The restaurant we covered. Somebody
Gotcha.
from the retail would have been here. They're recovering from their booster shot. I think for those who've had it, understand that happens. I appreciate council's willingness to move on this. I can kind of see where the tea leaves and wind's blowing on this one.
Well, I'm the only one on council, I think, that's talked about this.
So,
I've
well,
not
we
led
did have the
entire
conversation in the Acts
discussion.
Committee, so
Yeah.
I know where at least the members of the Acts were.
I suspect
originally
if
coming
everybody
from
thought
this.
I was full of it, they'd let me know.
So I do appreciate it. I think at least moving forward, this is a good piece. And I would just ask that in the future, my door is always open in terms of, coming down, meeting with folks if these kind of future issues are going to be considered. I can't speak for what the bid and or the Chamber of Commerce had been involved with these conversations prior to my arrival, but that is something that I am seeking to kind of correct, to at least be part of that earlier conversation. So thank you for consideration of this.
Thank you. And in all seriousness, both you and Will, I really appreciate how coherent and well prepared you both were. I feel like I have some understanding of what a judge feels like when he has two good attorneys arguing.
Maybe there's a future for you there.
Yeah, I doubt it.
You are a lawyer.
I think I've already sworn once today, so. But I really appreciate it. Daryl.
Darrell Cook, South Walnut Street. Who will arrest the offenders?
We've deputized Will Williams.
Is a lifesaver food?
No, I don't think I would classify that as food.
So if there was a lifesaver in the bag, it wouldn't be exempt.
No, and I think we would have to make sure that that's clear. Right? Yeah, I was ordering one single lifesaver next time he goes to Cali. All right. Is there a consensus to move forward with Will's suggestion on council?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
That sounds like the direction then. We appreciate it. And in all seriousness, I won't be here next year, but if this does become a bigger problem, you shouldn't hesitate to come back and talk to council. I'm sure the remaining people on council will listen, and we'll be happy to reconsider if the result is more dire than we anticipate today.
Mr. President.
Yeah, I think Will's going to. Bill.
Why is it that we have to get involved in what the merchant is packaging its percent? This is not something that harms the environment. I mean, if we just said no plastic bags and they're using plastic bags, then they'd have to come up with something else and figure out how to cover the cost.
I think Will's larger point is that there is no single-use option that does not harm the environment.
So, but we're still ahead of the game by banning plastic, even if paper bags are a problem too. They're much less of a problem, as I understand it.
Depends on what you're defining as the problem.
Well, let me suggest this. I'm looking at the website for Meatball U. And it says, by the way, I am hungry.
Told you, send
I'm
the
sorry
menu
you
next
close at 9. Listen to this. Bring a pot from home to fill with a family-sized portion of meatballs, and garlic bread to go. And, they call it BYOP, for bring your own pot. So there's one merchant who's got a
When you first
alternative.
brought that up, I thought you were talking about something entirely different.
Well, I just think we shouldn't get involved in this at all and let them figure out what to do.
All right. I appreciate that, Bill. We are going to move on to item number 7 in the agenda because we're only on item number 7 and it's 9:05. Thanks, John. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Which is entering into a contract with Lenny Electric to install the Verizon streetlight nodes on borough streetlights for the amount of $133. Does this mean that my streetlight will stop turning off at like 11:30 at night?
About 5 months.
Perfect. Anything you want to add to this agenda item, Al?
I want to add to this item.
Yeah, I think it kind of speaks for itself, and I know we've talked about this a bunch of times already. Pretty good with that?
Consent.
There you go. You're 1 for 1. Next item is enter into a contract with Miller Brothers to install and program the closed loop system. Is this green light go, Mike?
Yes.
It's finally happening.
Yes, it is.
Praise be. Enter into a contract with Miller Brothers to install the closed loop system relative to the traffic signal improvements project 508 is the cost. How much of that are we paying?
The total project budget was 860,000. 172,000 of that was borough match.
Okay, cool.
We're actually coming in estimated at $108,000 under budget, so that's actually going to reduce our match also.
Dynamite. Thank you.
And yeah, even though we only have 72,000 cash budgeted this year to match that number, and we actually need 20% of 508, we have grant receivables for money we spent in 2021 that we can submit for when the project is done. So we're actually going to get grant money back in 22 to make up that difference.
Thank you, Sean.
Consent.
Mike?
Consent, I just a question that I'm so happy this is happening. Just when will this project begin? How long will it take?
I'm not sure. This was bid out by TPD.
I think we had a meeting with them today. I think he said 5 months.
I think he said about July. He was anticipating being complete.
The wiring will be done. After the wiring is done, traffic engineer said then PennDOT take over the re-signaling.
Yeah, they'll do the programming, the timing of everything.
Now we're going to need to get the people who double park on Gay Street out of the way. Motoring. All right, consent on that one, everybody? Alrighty. The next item on the agenda is enter into annual contracts with the following, with Glasgow Inc. For furnishing road materials, All Seasons Landscaping for rain garden maintenance, Garden State Highway Products for street and traffic signage, and All Seasons Landscaping again for shade tree planting. Any questions or comments on this?
Consent.
Consent. Alrighty. Number 10 is discuss amending Chapter 102, which is the section for trees and the responsibility for removal and maintenance of street trees to limit tree removal reimbursement from 50% to the maximum of $750, conditioned upon replacing the tree within 3 months. Where did this come from?
Well, I have a spreadsheet to explain some of this. In 2021, we have already reimbursed $31,000 in tree removal. That's 50%. And we have roughly another $25,000 of anticipated that we'll have to be paying out. A total of $56,000. We have allocated in our budget $26,000. So what I did was I was trying to come up with a cap number to try to keep it within our budget. That number is $750 per tree as a maximum. And part of the problem right now is that trees are being removed but never replanted. So in order to promote the replanting of the trees, I want to condition it upon replacing of the tree. That's something, is that?
I love that idea.
And we have the tree planting program every year, so we could actually include it in our planting, but make it mandatory that a tree is replanted in order to qualify for that reimbursement.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Gail, if I may?
Yeah, Lisa.
I think some of the objection or discussion last week was related to the $750 cap. So, and I understand that how you got there was dividing, right, getting to the 750 here by the number of trees that we've done this year. But I think that, and we were all in support of, you know, making it conditional, right, the reimbursement on replanting the tree, but not capping it at 750, going from 50% to 750. That, I think, is where we had some concerns.
Do you know what the average, what are we talking in terms of an average?
I've got a spreadsheet of the.
Now, one of the other things to keep in mind or consider is, you say that everyone's not honest, but no borough's going to pay 50% of the cost of something. Get an estimate from your contractor, and you tell that to the contractor, they jack up the price. Should. Say if the borough, if we had our own tree department with it, it was $2,000, 50% $1,000. Sometimes people with the, I don't like the 50% either way. Should be a dollar value, whether it's $750 or $3,000. I'd rather there be a dollar value than just a percentage. I think it just makes it easier for keeping.
I think you could see on that list that the high number ones are
It's like
larger,
the most
larger property owners and.
Yeah, the most expensive looks like
developers.
it was 2,800.
Right.
The least expensive was 425.
Right.
So half oh, that's the reimbursement amount. So the actual tree removal in that context was
Twice as much. Right.
yeah, 56.
So, Mr. Galley, Bernie Flynn, we have a Mendoza line there at $3,000, okay? I think that if a resident or Mr. Dunn finds a tree that is over $3,000, or make it $5,000, the resident comes back to Borough Council or to the Public Works and then renegotiate something over $5,000. The ones that we're looking at, they're pretty reasonable. They go up as high as $3,000. But there are trees in the borough that are going to come down that.
This is only half of the cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's anything over, I think we put a caveat in there, anything over $5,000 takedown. It's we should reconsider that for the residents.
I have a question. The process, you have a street tree that needs to be taken down. You have to go, it's on the resident to find the company to do the work, correct? And then we bring you the bill. That's the way it works. Is there a way to change that where the borough has a contract to have somebody, one of these, companies do that we can help with the price in general and that would kind of solve that issue, or is that too much?
We could have the borough shade tree maintenance contractor try to quote for us.
I feel like at that point you get a fair quote to Mr. Perone's point, where if you went through somebody else, they say exactly, they're like, oh, the borough's going to pay half of this. Okay, it's going to cost this much, an exorbitant amount. Where if the borough was asking, probably get a much fairer amount. I don't know if we still need to hit the 50%, but it would probably help all overall.
Yeah, what if we did 50% of that number? You
Okay.
know, we're gonna have our person come out, give a quote, we'll reimburse 50% of that. If you use that person, great. If you use somebody else for less, you know, we'll reimburse less. If you use more, that's so sad. Is that like
The
an
benefit
actual
of using our contractor is our contractor's going to be here more often. He may have more things to do.
Yeah.
If a homeowner is hiring a contractor to come out and remove a tree, he may be coming out for one tree in the entire borough. So there's mobilization costs and things like that, travel costs that.
Do you think that's a viable solution, a requirement that, or an ordinance that says we'll reimburse up to 50% of our contractor's estimate? And then if you use that person, great, you know what you're gonna get. If you don't, you know, reimburse less if you get a better deal, and we're reimburse up to 50% if you get a worse deal. Up to 50% of our bid. Except,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know, that may not solve the ultimate problem, which is we're trying to save $30,000.
Well, trying to keep it in the budget
Yeah.
within our budgeted number. So the question is, if we don't do this, then how are we going to?
Guess what we need some guidance on is we brought this issue to the committee out of, Al brought it to my attention to control costs in this transaction. So we brought it to the committee to discuss, and there wasn't a clear recommendation from the committee, although there was some hesitancy, if I'm correct, to make it as low as we had it proposed in this proposal. So maybe the question that would help us is, want borough to pay less than it does today for tree reimbursements? Do you want us to come up with some metric or way to do this that saves us more money than we're doing right now, knowing the cost that we have expended on this last 12 to 18 months?
I'm not gonna lose sleep over the cost of this, but I'm also gonna be off council in, 30 days. Wow. Terrible math.
I mean, I think we should, if I may, I think we should hold residents accountable to, you know, a market price, right? So whatever is the competitive price, our vendor or their vendor, and we can use our vendor as the baseline. But, you know, again, the discussion we had last week is if it costs me $3,000 to remove a tree and I'm expecting $1,500 and you suddenly tell me I'm going to get $750, it's not going to make me a very good resident.
Well, especially because these trees are trees that we're making them take out, right?
Well, they're trees that are condemned. They're either.
Which means they have to take them out, right?
Disease, right. Either they're coming down on their own or they're being taken down.
Yeah. So it's like we call you and say, hey, guess what? You have to take your tree down, and here's $750.
Not only that, the
Y'all are
arbiter-
gonna get yelled
Or
at
it could
for
come
that.
down on their house and then they.
Yeah, the arbiter.
The insurance company pays
yeah,
for it.
has to
How
be
long could
approved
that
by the
take?
borough as well. The tree surgeon has to be approved by the borough.
Think about too how this plays out in real life. There's a tree that the arborist looks at, determines that it's hazard, and now us to do something about it. So reimbursement, I guess, works in a way to grease that transaction and make it happen, and have the adjacent property owner pay for half of it.
This
We're
may be
just
an-
looking at trying to control some costs.
This may be an impossible request, but when we condemn a tree, do we keep pictures of it? You know, does the arborist go out and take pictures of it? And could we have our contractor look at some of those trees? You know, the list is probably 30 trees. Look at, 10 of them and say like, this one was $5,000. You know, what do you think about that? They're like, yeah, that's about right. Then I feel like we would have a little more information to answer Mike's question. You know, are people saying, hey, send me a bill for $5,000, I'll write you a check for $3,000, and I just got rid of my street tree for $500. You know, you'd think that they'd be able to look at some pictures and say like, wow, 5,000 seems like way out of line on this one, or no, that's about right. We do that and then revisit the issue? Do you like how I'm just trying to push everything to next month? Does that make sense to everybody?
I think that makes sense, and I'd like to see a little bit more information in that vein. But I also, back to the point I said, if we had somebody from the borough asking a vendor and knowing that, having a relationship with that vendor already, I think we probably would get much fairer prices, and then we can make a decision. I don't know if 750 would still be that number.
Yeah.
But it makes more sense. All of that put aside, I think the contingency upon replacing the tree absolutely needs to be in there.
100%. That's a great idea. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Oh,
Are we only talking about trees that have been condemned?
yeah.
These are street trees,
Street trees that have
street
been.
trees being condemned, yes.
Okay. Well, for years, in discussions like this, it's been brought up that people are hesitant to put in new trees. One gets taken down, they don't want to put up another one because it's going to cost them an arm and a leg to take it down. And pretty soon our nice tree canopy in town is gone. That's hyperbole, but you get what I mean. Suggestions been made in the past that it should be the borough's responsibility, financial-wise, to take the tree down, period. You condemn it, you get the vendor a price and take it down and you pay for it now. Response, I guess, is, well, where are we going to get the money? That's going to cost a lot of money. But why is that not the goal that would like to see occur? Anybody? I'm sticking with the meatballs.
All right. Any other questions on this one? We'll revisit that with some more information. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
The next item on the agenda is discuss revising the fee schedule to charge $50 fee for large bulk trash pickup items, $10 recycling fee for tires up to 17 inches, and a $25 recycling fee for tires over 17 inches. And this is all based on some rising costs that we've seen in bulk trash.
Yes, and currently we pick up mattresses is what we are charged for when we take it to the landfill. We're charged $25 each mattress, and we charge nothing for it currently. So the reason I wanted to implement first, and the other thing is we only pick up one bulk item. So we run into a lot of issues where people are requesting more than one bulk item. We take one, they have to hold on to the other ones for subsequent weeks. So by doing this, we could pick up as many items as they want, covering our costs for the landfill, and also we could pick up additional items for them.
What would be the mechanism for doing this? Would I have to drive my mattress to Public Works, or would I go on the system and pay $50 and you'd pick it up?
They basically come to Public Works, fill out a form, let us know what items they're going to be leaving out, and schedule a pickup time. They pay for it in advance, and we schedule a pickup.
Any thought to being able to do that online?
Good.
Okay.
I mean, something that finance department needs to be involved in, transaction a little simpler. Probably should be a piece of software out there.
Yeah.
Schedule your time.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds great. The paying for it doesn't sound great, but having the option to leave out additional bulk items or schedule them, at a time that's not one of the 12 days a year, would certainly be. We say large bulk item,
That's all. That's been a question. That question was brought up last month. I came up with a 75-pound and also a basically 30 cubic foot dimensionally. 2 by 3 by 5, kind of something that needs 2 people to lift and.
Yeah, because I have like this giant concrete thing that somebody had like a table in. But it's like 200 pounds. I've been throwing it away in small pieces. There's like 125 pounds left. But it'd be nice if I could just go on the website and have someone come pick it up.
Mr. Galley, Bernie Flynn.
Yeah.
And Ms. Dorsey and I have talked about this situation because it was in a part of our committee that we were discussing things. We think that the $50 fee is a little too much. And the 75 pounds to 100 pounds to 200 pounds, whatever it is, the consensus that we actually came up with was that each piece would cost roughly about $35. And just follow the system that you notify Public Works, you pay for it, they come and get it. So if you have 3 or 4 items, it's $35 per piece, and it's gone. If you have a large sofa, the large sofa can be lifted and put into the, we always have more than one person on a sanitation truck, put into the back. The thing cracks it in half and it just folds back in. So trying to use all the different other metrics that we have, it makes sense just to have a flat fee, covering our costs. We have to go to Honeybrook to drop it off anyway. And that way there's people don't know how big things are or how much they weigh. So at a flat fee of $35, I think that would be a good thing. Right, Ms. Dorsey?
Yeah, I agree, $35.
Is this?
I was just gonna reiterate what Bernie said. I mean, who's out there weighing, whether it's 75 pounds or 85 or 100 pounds? And the other question I had was on the tires. Do we take tires today?
Yes,
We do. And no, there's no charge for them.
correct. We have people dropping them off and bring them there. We do that. We have our own tires that we're changing tires on borough vehicles and that. And so people can come and drop those off and every so often get those picked up.
Gotcha.
They're taken away.
We're
charged for those also.
Just so I'm clear, this is not intended to replace the normal bulk trash pickup that would be for, a smaller item. Let's say I want to get rid of a card table, like one of those cheap little folding tables. That's not 75 pounds. It's not huge. Would we still have a normal bulk trash pickup for those items? And this process would be specific to bigger, heavier things?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. I think that makes sense. Does $35 work for you?
Yeah, that's fine. We discussed it. I discussed it with Bernie and I have no problems.
Everybody on board with that plan?
Yeah.
I don't think that we should go out and solicit tires because they are a hazardous waste to start out with. But as Alberto mentioned, we have enough of our own vehicle tires we have to get rid of. And if people drop them off, we include it in it as a small fee.
Nick looked like he was wanting to ask a question. He had that.
My question's really the same as yours. I just wanted to be sure that I understood it. Like, so bulk trash will still be a thing that is free. Basically, you just can't be a jerk about it now. I can't put a 200-pound block of concrete out
Right.
there.
Large items what happens is a lot of larger items, when we pick up bulk week, we have to go back with 2 trucks. So in this way, we'll have the regular trash truck picking up all the regular items and the smaller bulk items. The larger bulk items will go with a separate truck. And it doesn't necessarily have to be on a trash day either. We could schedule a day, any day of the week. Pick up all around the borough. That's something we can.
That sounds
arrange.
great. I mean, that sounds like a very convenient thing to add for those bigger items. I mean, I'm sure people want to get rid of a giant mattress for free, aren't going to be happy about it, but it'll be nice to not have it sit in my garage for 26 days. Cool. All right. I think we have a plan on that one.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Nicole Shimoni, 505 Keystone Alley. The question is, like, I think, I don't mind paying if I've got a bulk item, but what I want to know is then when we implement this, and maybe this is another time, there'll probably be a gazillion people that still put their mattress out at the wrong time. So how will that get communicated to them that they can't put it out at the beginning of the month like they used to be able to do that? Because I know they're on the community boards and stuff when there was like the trash cans with the wrong size and the trash guys started putting labels on them too. People got a little disappointed. And so how would this be rolled out so people are not so unhappy?
I think that's a great question. I'm going to give you the real answer, which is they're not going to pick them up. Those people are going to call to yell at Alberto, and he's going to explain to them that we've changed the rule and they now have to pay $35. And then they'll call one of us to yell at us.
How do we get ahead of that?
Yeah.
I know you
No,
won't
I'm
be
sure
here
we'll-
next year, so
I'm
you're
sure-
not.
yeah, they'll still call me. I'm sure we'll do all of everything in our power to communicate that change. You know, Bill will push it out through our social media. We'll put it on our website. We'll talk about it now. You know, most of us have email lists that we send things to our residents. You know, we'll try and do all of those things. I think the practical reality of today is that that's not going to hit everybody, especially, you know, the people who are moving once a year and throwing out mattresses and doing that kind of stuff. You know, so maybe we can get some folks helping notify landlords so they can notify their residents, et cetera. But we'll do all of
Part
those.
of the campus community coalition, like talking to
exactly
them
right.
saying, don't put your mattress out.
So we'll do all of those things as well. But I suspect that, you know, Al's going to get a bunch of angry people calling him. And that'll be the secondary communication method.
All right, well,
So that's a great question.
thanks. While I'm up here, can I ask one other thing about the other topic you guys were talking about with the plastic bags?
Technically, no, but sure.
Utensils. We get a lot of takeout with a lot of utensils we don't need. Is there a way to work to save, it would save the businesses money and things like that? Just something to think about. Because I also on community boards, a lot of people are saying we get all these utensils that we don't need
Yeah.
and no one knows what to do with them, especially with the pandemic.
Technically, I'm not allowed to talk about that because it's not an agenda item, so I wouldn't be allowed to say that I think that that's something that Will should look into and we should consider in the future, perhaps banning that. So I'm not allowed to say that.
Okay, all right, good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is to reject all bids for the Taylor Run wastewater treatment plant digester gas safety equipment upgrade and rebid the project. I'm assuming we
It's
did
pretty-
not get
oh.
what we.
I'm just gonna say, I didn't know you came in and overbid, so go at the bids.
Well, you waited here for 2.5 hours to say that, and Perone lets you walk all the way up to the mic and steals your thunder.
Have dinner now. I want a meatball.
Oh my gosh.
Consent. Thank you, Michael.
Is there anything else you'd like to add while you're here, or
You're running for the meatball sandwiches, yep.
maybe he should send everybody the email with the meatball
Yeah.
sandwich order?
I'm buying if you run.
Well, thank you. We'll put that on consent. Thanks.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda in the parking committee is to authorize the solicitor to prepare an amendment and schedule a public hearing to install a handicap parking space located at 3 South Brandywine Street. This is pretty standard. Consent? Reading? The next item is to authorize the solicitor to prepare an amendment and schedule a public hearing to remove the handicap parking space located at, on West Lafayette Street. Consent?
Consent.
Alrighty, now we're cooking. The next item in the public safety agenda is to adopt the 21 through 24 Westchester Police Strategic Plan. Don's the chair of that committee. No, Mike is.
I am, but I'm sure that the mayor or maybe the police chief would like to say anything about it. We at the committee recommended 3-0. I was a part of the strategic plan committee, or committee, I guess it was. It's, you know, I don't know if you really need to get into all the details of it. Mayor, if you feel like you want to give a good quick spiel on it, is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. So we went through the Westchester Police Department strategic planning process. Pointed, it was about 15 different members, and quickly I'll rattle them off here just to thank them. Chief Jim Moorhead, Dan Hollander, the Assistant District Attorney, Sean Metrick. Thanks, Sean. Assistant Borough Manager. I was on it. Obviously, John O'Brien, Executive Director of the bid, Michael Stefano, Council Member, Teresa Eady, the Administrative Assistant to the Mayor and the Chief, Andy Cantlin, Township Manager, East Bradford Township, Rena Gonzalez, Westchester Borough resident. She's a Director of Constituent Services with the PA State Senate for Carolyn Committee. She's also on the Diversity Committee. Sarah Hinkle, Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs, Westchester University. Dawn Mader, Westchester Borough resident and Director of Equity and Assessment, Westchester Area School District. Kayla Winter, Officer, Westchester Police Department. Pat Davis, East Bradford resident, East Bradford Board of Supervisors member. Josh Maxwell, County Commissioner. Kate Shaw, Board Member for the Westchester Area School District, as well as a Borough resident. Robert Sokolowski, our newer Superintendent for Westchester Area School District, and John Brill, the Emergency Management Coordinator. So want to thank all of the members. The strategic plan task force met for a few months and distilled down various items that that will be guiding principles for the police department going forward through 2024. I'm not sure if we want to really dig into it, Jim, or if you have anything you want to say beyond that.
Nothing else? All righty. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Chief, Mike, everyone else. Sean, excellent work. We actually have to adopt this, so we'll put it on the consent agenda.
That's yes, thank you.
The next item on the agenda in smart growth is to approve the reverse subdivision on South Poplar Street. Anything to add to that, Kevin?
Sure. No, this is just for a reverse subdivision of 2 parcels to construct a single-family dwelling. Have the project engineer here from DL.
Oh my God, dude, I feel so bad. I hope you bill hourly. Perfect.
The good thing is.
Do you want me to move you to the end, or? You know, from my time on Planning Commission and Zoning Hearing Board, we always loved reverse subdivisions. Any questions on this request? Consent?
Consent.
That was a long wait.
He's got one more.
Oh, is this one going to be more fun, or?
No,
approve the land development application for 339 West Gay Street.
This project is for a subdivision of a single parcel for the construction of 2 twin.
Oh, so we're breaking even here at the end of the day.
This project also received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission. And Alex is here to provide any information or answer any questions for this project.
Any questions? Send everybody? All right. Excellent work, Alex. Make sure you tell your clients that you were instrumental in their success. Number 18 on the agenda, approve an amendment to the historic, not to suggest that you weren't. I'm sure all the work you did before tonight was in fact instrumental to their success, but you should really hype your performance this evening. 18.
Mr. Galley, his client's sitting right behind him.
Couldn't have done it without Alex, let me tell you. Number 18, approve an amendment to the Historic Inventory Project Professional Services Agreement.
We have a contract with Jane Dorchester to do our inventory update. We did receive a grant from the state. We need to make some minor amendments to that agreement with her due to changes in the program that the state has implemented.
From the grant?
From the grant. So they're just simple changes, and basically is the end product that Jane is going to produce. They're really, I don't know if you have that document if you want to there, but
Any questions on the amendment to the Dorchester agreement? Fancy. All right, consent, everybody? Thanks, Kevin. Next item on the agenda, the HARB certificate of appropriateness. Seems pretty forma. Any questions on this one? Consent? All right, thank you, Mr. Gore. Next is approve the resolution to amend the borough fee schedule, recommended by the committee 3-0. Barb, welcome.
Thank you. Some of the major changes that we're making on the fee schedule are increasing the building permits, electrical permits, and plumbing permits, as well as increasing the fees that we charge for storm protection certifications and sewer certifications. And then also some changes to the fees charged for recycling containers and traffic control devices through the Public Works Department, as well as set up and break down fees for Public Works employees.
Cool. Any questions for Barb on the amendments to the fee schedule, which I assume are the red ones?
Mr. Galley, Bernie Flynn.
Bernie.
Barb, does that cover I heard you say the plumbing connection fees? Is that on there?
Yeah, so it's for the building permits for the 1 and 2.
No.
For,
It's asking sewer connection.
Sewer connection fees.
No.
That's not part.
it's just for plumbing permits.
Weren't we asked to take a look at that a long time ago?
To the best, there was a study that was, we asked a contractor to do tap-in fees. I will follow up and see where that is at this point in time.
Yeah, that's, well, we had studies done on what the cost water sewer bill. So it's all based on usage. We haven't done a recent study on the sewer taps.
Okay.
But that's something that you probably should look to do.
Mr. Metzger, can you make a
The
point?
Yeah, the other question with this resolution, we had the other conversation about 35 hours for the bulk trash pickup. That's part of this same fee schedule. So I wasn't clear. I just want to get clarity on where you.
$35
for every oversized item.
That's correct. And then whatever the tires were.
We have to make that tires, right?
Tires, yeah, whatever.
8 tires, $35?
No, the tires were per Mr. Yeah, they're 10 for recycling tires and then 25 over 17.
Okay, so we'll make those changes.
Thank you. Yeah, the sewer tapping fees, I don't think we've done them in a long, long time.
No, we recently, probably a few months ago. That's why I said that.
It's coming quickly.
The next item on the agenda is to approve a resolution stipulating the reimbursement of funds transferred from the capital operating reserve fund to the general fund to be paid in full no later than June 1st, 2022. What's going on here, Barb?
So we're coming upon year end, and we're projecting a relatively low balance in our general fund cash account. We're projecting to end the year with about $160,000. Obviously, that's not going to be enough to fund the first 3 months of 22. So our request tonight rather than going out and borrowing a short-term loan through the banks at, whatever the interest rates are at this point in time. We're asking Borough Council if we could borrow the money from the capital operating reserve and pay that back by June 1st of next year and provide monthly reporting of any amounts that were transferred and what was transferred from the reserve fund and anything that's transferred back.
Okay. We did the loan last year, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, we paid over $50,000 in closing costs and fees and interest last year. And Mr. Metric was pulling together a resolution for us to make sure that we pay this back by June 1st.
If I recall, the capital reserves are in a low interest count, so it's not like there's
Yeah.
a big opportunity.
Yeah, it's 1.79%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Questions on this? Consent? All right, thank you, Barb.
Thank you.
The last item on the agenda is other business and the approval of our meeting minutes from last month. Consent? All righty.
Mr. President, I have just one
Yes,
thing.
Sean. I was hoping we would make it to 10.
I'm sorry,
That's all right.
I'll be quick. I'd like council to consider adding something to discussion tomorrow night, which should be brief. And this matter was not on tonight's agenda. Earlier this year, I received an email sent to all local jurisdictions and counties to see if would like to register in a settlement with a national opioid settlement, which would, it's a complex legal action taking place against three gigantic pharmaceutical companies and a settlement that spans many states, counties, and jurisdictions. To which I simply responded, yes, Westchester is a local municipality and my name is Sean Metric. Now we are up against a deadline, which is why I'm bringing it up tonight, and I would like council's authorization to participate in the settlement agreement. We can discuss it more tomorrow. I'll give you more information tomorrow about it, detailing what exactly we would be getting involved in. I don't know any details as far as what amounts of money we're talking about, how it's supposed to be used, but I thought might as well save our place in line and an opportunity to engage in that settlement. Time comes. I just didn't know that the deadline was going to be January 2nd, and I just found that out last few days.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Thanks, Sean. Nice work. All right, we're done.